Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku was Shadow Monarch with Harem of RWBY Girls, Part 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Son of the Shadow Monarch by Black Reaper 707. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. It was a regular night in Remnant. We start the story in a simple dust store called From Dusk Till Dawn. The only two people in the store were the old owner and a red-haired girl. The young woman was busy looking at a weapons magazine and listening to her music with her hood up. Besides the two, the store was tranquil until the sound of the bell above the door chimed. In walked a woman in a white jacket and bowler hat. Her orange hair went down to the center of her back, and she walked with a sway in her step that most would find very sensual. She walked up to the counter, flanked by two men with two more behind her. "Do you know how hard it is to find a dust store that is open this late at night?" she said as she flicked the ashes of her cigar out on the counter. As she said this, the henchman on her right pointed his gun in the old man's face. "Old man. Please just take my money and leave. Calm down, we don't want your money to take the dust," she said to the men surrounding her. They took to the task at hand and started to gather up all the dust in the store. As one of the men was walking around, he noticed someone in the back with a red hood. He told the woman to put her hand where he could see them, but she could not hear him due to the music. He walked up behind her and grabbed her shoulder to turn her around. As she turned, she removed her hood, and he saw she had headphones on. He pointed at them, and she removed them. "Yes, can I help you?" Henchman 1. "Yay, I said you can put your hands in the air now," he said, raising his sword so she could see. "Are you robbing me?" she asked with a tilt of her head. Henchman 1. "Yes, so put your hands you." Before he could finish the sentence, he was launched towards the front of the store, past the woman who was leaning on the counter. She looked at another of the men standing around and signaled for one of them to take a look. One of them then runs around the corner with his gun drawn, yelling "freeze," only to be launched back like the first guy, but this time through the window. From here, the fight goes the same as the show. "You were worth every cent, truly you were," she said with as much sarcasm as she could muster at the moment. "Oh well, as much as I would like to stay and play with you more, this is where we part." Before she could finish her sentence, she felt like she was being suffocated. It was as if death itself was breathing down her neck, and from what she could see, it was also affecting the young woman in front of her. But just as quickly as it came, it vanished as if it was never there. The orange-haired woman took this chance to run towards the ladder towards the roof while the girl was still trying to get over the shock. The orange-haired woman was near the top of the roof when she heard yelling behind her, but she paid it no mind. Her only focus was escaping. As she finally got to the top of the roof, she was met with a sight that ran her blood cold. Standing in front of her was someone or something wearing beaten-down clothes, if you could call them clothes. He was around 6 feet 4 inches if she had to guess, and from his build, he was probably a male. But that was not what froze her in place. No, his eyes were glowing green with a hint of purple behind them. All her instincts were telling her to run away, and that is precisely what she did. She heard the red-haired girl yelling after her, but she didn't care. All that mattered to her at this moment was getting away from that monster. When she heard the engines of the bullhead, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She quickly jumped on and turned around to ensure where that monster was. She saw him still standing in the same spot she last saw him, but now that she could get a better look, she saw he was holding something. The next thing she noticed was the red-haired girl was quickly catching up to her. "Sorry Red, but this is where it ends tonight," she said as she chucked a red crystal at the young woman's feet, which stopped her for a second long enough for the orange-haired woman to raise her cane and fired a shot. The attack would have hit the red-headed girl, but a flash of purple jumped in front of her and stopped the attack from hitting her. They tried to take off but were suddenly forced to a halt. "Orange hair. What's going on? Why are we not moving?" she said angrily. "I don't know. I am going at full throttle, but we are not moving an inch," the person at the pilot seat said back, just as angry. "Do you see anything that could be keeping us here?" She returned to the open door and looked out and saw nothing that could keep them from moving. So she looked at where the huntress and red-haired brat were and saw they were still dealing with that last attack. That is when she remembered the man she ran by. She was fleeing. She looked in his direction and saw that he had his hand outstretched in their direction with a blue glow around it. She ran back to the front and told the person flying what was going on just as they started to get hit by attacks from the huntress. The person flying the ship quickly got out of the seat, leaving Orange Hair to quickly grab the controls to keep them from crashing when they were free. The mysterious person then went to the open door and started to send attacks at the huntress. They then sent an attack at the mysterious man holding them in place. The man was forced to dodge by quickly grabbing the thing at his feet and jumping away. He could not entirely dodge the attack, though, and his green hood shot off his head, exposing a mess of green hair. She could not see his face, but she could feel his eyes on her. She quickly closed the door, and they made their escape from that place. Glinda's POV. I sighed in defeat at the fact that they managed to escape. I turned to the young woman I had just saved, and the man walked up to us carrying something in both arms. I looked closely at him but couldn't make out any details about him other than his green hair. The young woman with red hair then looked at me with stars in her eyes, saying, "Red. Oh my OM, you're a huntress, right? Can I please have your autograph?" I sighed as I heard a small laugh beside me. I looked over and saw the young man right next to me, which surprised me since I didn't hear him. The woman looked at him and asked a question on both of our minds. "Red. What are you laughing at, and who are you? By the way, I have never seen clothes like those before. If you call them that, they are practically falling off you." The young man looked down at himself and could only nod at what she said. He then replied to her question. "Yay, not my best look, and my name is Izuku-san, and I have a question as well. Where the hell am I anyway?" He said this looking around. Both of the women look at each other, so I decided to answer him, saying that he was in Vale. He looked very confused at this, so I asked where he was from. "Izuku. I am from Japan." Both the young woman and I gave him a perplexed look at this and asked, "Where is that?" We all stood around awkwardly until I got my wits and asked the two to come with me to question them. The young man just shrugged, and the young woman looked down in defeat, thinking she would get into trouble. Before we left, I asked the young man what he was carrying, and his response shocked me beyond belief. "Izuku. Oh, I am carrying my daughter. She has been asleep this whole time because of a traumatic experience she had shortly before we arrived here." He said this so casually that I misstepped for a second. He quickly caught me with his open arm, causing me to blush slightly. He then helps me back to my feet. I looked closer at the young man, who could be no older than 18. Looking at the now uncovered kid, she looked to be about 5 to 6 but looked nothing like the man holding her. "Glinda. We will have much to talk about, won't we?" Izuku, sad face, shrugs. "I am just as confused as you are, although for different reasons. I also assume what's your name Red you as well, ma'am." The young woman perked up at this. "Red. Oh, sorry, my name is Ruby Rose." "Ruby. Also, you never answered why you laughed at me earlier." "Glinda. Yes, I was wondering as well, and my name is Glinda Goodwitch." Izuku. "Oh right," laughs softly. "Well, it's because you reminded me of my younger self with how you were acting, and it is a pleasure to make both of your acquaintances," he said, adjusting his grip on the sleeping kid in his arms. Ruby. "Oh, that's okay then, and right back at you, Izuku." Glinda. "Yes, a pleasure as well," I say, still blushing from the previous encounter. Luckily, neither of the two noticed. Time skip brought to you by a sleeping bean. Izuku and Ruby were sitting in an interrogation room. Ruby was looking extremely worried while Izuku was focused on Eri, who was sitting on his lap. She had woken up on the way to the police station, and at first, she was scared, but after Izuku assured her they were safe and no one would hurt them, she calmed down. However, she asked an abundance of questions ranging from where they were to why the lady next to them was so worried. Izuku didn't know how to answer some of the questions as he didn't know the answer himself. As this went on for about 30 minutes, the door opened to reveal two women. One was the one that walked him to the station. The other one was a silver-haired woman about the same height as Izuku. She had pure white hair down to her shoulders and small black glasses. She wore a green turtleneck with a cross pin and a black jacket. In her hands were a large cup of coffee and cookies. She then started to speak. Her voice was very beautiful and a little musical. "Hello, you three, my name is Olivia Ospin." Ruby then gasped and started to become even more nervous than before. As Olivia sat the plate of cookies on the table, Izuku saw Ruby trying to snatch one stealthily. So he quickly grabbed one for himself and Eri without anyone noticing, or so he thought. Olivia smiled softly in the young man's direction, watching him take care of the young girl. Olivia. So I have a question for you, young lady who taught you how to use one of the most dangerous weapons known to man. Because as far as I know, only one person with the ability to teach someone to this degree was a dusty old quill, she asked Ruby as Ruby was stuffing her face with the rest of the cookies on the plate. Ruby. Hey, that's my Aunt Quill. She was the one who taught me everything I know. She said this while slightly choking on a cookie, only for Izuku to pat her on the back. She looked over and thanked him. But in turn, this leads the line of questioning to turn to him. Olivia. That leads us to you, Mr. Sung. You are an enigma to us, you and that child. There is nothing on any of you, no hospital record or anything. It is almost as if you appeared out of thin air. Not to mention the ability you displayed is more advanced than any of us can tell, not to mention that I cannot feel an aura coming off you. So that raises the question of who you are. Izuku now had all of their attention on him. Eri, on the other hand, was still eating her cookie, blissfully unaware of everything that was going on. Izuku. Well, I might have an idea about how I got here, but as to who I am, that is a rather long story. Olivia. We have time. Izuku. Okay, then sit back, and I will tell you about my life, but I will be keeping my powers a secret for now until I know more about all of you. Olivia. That is perfectly reasonable. He then went on to explain his world of heroes and villains. 95% of our population has some superhuman ability called a quirk, and the other 5% are quirkless. He also told them about how those that are deemed quirkless are treated like less than human and are often treated as nothing more than a punching bags. They asked him how he knew so much about this, and he told them that until the age of 11, he was quirkless and was heavily neglected by his family and abused by his former friends and sister. To say they were disgusted would be an understatement. He went on to tell them how he had run away from home and met his new father named Sung Jin-woo, and he had given him his power. Him eventually dying of old age after he gave him his powers and trained him a bit on how to use them properly, but he left a lot up to him to figure out. By the end of my story, Izuku was tearing up, having to relive his past. It got better when Eri gave me a hug saying everything would be alright. All Izuku could do at that moment was smile at the small girl in my arms. What surprised him the most was when he was tackled by a bawling Ruby, who gave him a hug that could put a bear to shame. Izuku looked over at the other two women and saw that they were tearing up as well, and he could tell Glinda was mad as hell. Olivia. To think that someone so young would have gone through so much. But I must ask, how did you get a daughter around her age? You would have had to be 12 when she was born. Izuku. Well, she is not my biological daughter. I had saved her from a man who was doing experiments on her. He was using her to get rid of quirks by using her blood, and when she had run out, he would use his quirk to disassemble her and then put her back together to get her quirk to stop. When I discovered what was happening to her, I quickly stormed the base to save her and killed everyone there. Except for one person who hated what was happening to her but was not strong enough to help her. So he stayed around to ensure she was as safe as he could manage. Eri. Yay, Papa saved me from the scary Birdman. At first, I was scared when he showed up, thinking that he would hurt me, but he just hugged me and told me that I would be safe from now on. After that, he took me out of there. He covered my eyes so I couldn't see anything, but I trusted Papa. She said this with little stars in her eyes, and all the women in the room could only think about how adorable she was. But at the same time, they were wondering what kind of monster would do something so horrible to such a precious little angel like her. Needless to say that if it was possible, every woman in the room was even more pissed and Ruby was crying even more and also brought Eri into her death hug. Olivia. Thank you for telling us your story and how you two met. But I must ask why you told strangers so much about your life. She asked me with a curious tilt of the head. Glinda. I was wondering the same thing. Izuku sat there thinking for a moment as he rubbed Ruby's back to try and get her to stop crying while holding onto Eri with his other hand. My reason is quite simple. It is always easier to tell a stranger something about yourself because if they are interested in the topic, they will pay more attention to what you are saying. Their views won't be biased based on past interactions between the two parties. Yes, it can be awkward to tell strangers about what you went through in life, but you all seem like wonderful people, so I took a chance and told you my story. Based on your reactions to it, my assumption was correct. Both Olivia and Glinda sat there staring at Izuku in shocked silence. By this point, Ruby had stopped crying but was still hugging him, and airy-tight Izuku was still rubbing circles on her back. Olivia sat for a second and then asked a question. Olivia, even with that story, it still doesn't answer how both of you got here. Izuku. Right, my bad, that is simple. After my father died, I became a vigilante and started hunting down villains. Those that could be redeemed, I help out, while those that could not be redeemed were put down whether hero or villain. Olivia. You killed heroes. Izuku. Only the fake ones that did not care for human life and did it solely for the fame and money. Or would actively wait till the media showed up before helping out even at the cost of others' life. Olivia. Oh well, while I do not agree with what you did, I understand where you are coming from, but back to how you got sent here. Izuku. Well, I was hunting down the #1 villain who had the power to take and give quirks from people. He had made a deal with one of my father's old enemies to get rid of me. They combined their powers and set a trap for me. They kidnapped my daughter and forced me to face them. Well, my old family tried to help in a ploy to earn my forgiveness. But it backfired on them, and they ended up losing their life, but before she died, my sister passed on her quirk to me. Izuku. Giving me a power boost enough to finally end his reign of terror. But little did I know they had come up with a backup plan in case they lost that would take me out with them. I only had enough time to get to Eri and grab her before his plan went into effect. The next thing I knew, there was a big flash of light, and I was on that roof with Eri in my arms, standing in front of that beautiful orange-haired lady, and before I could ask anything, she ran away. The room was silent as everyone digested what Izuku had just told them. Ruby had let go of him and sat back in her seat. Both she and Glinda had a slight pout on their faces. Izuku was wondering what that was about, but he had other things to worry about. Eri had fallen back asleep in his arms as he was telling the story. He was waiting for someone to speak before Olivia asked a question. Olivia, are you still able to use your full power, and why does the young girl have a horn on her head? Izuku. No, after I showed up in this world, my powers have been reset, not fully but enough to where I would struggle heavily if I were to fight them again. As for the quirk I got from my sister, I still have some control over it, not 100% but maybe around 15 to 25%, but I have that locked away within myself. Olivia. Why? Izuku. Because when a user dies, a fragment of their soul gets trapped within the quirk itself, meaning that if I were to go into my mindscape, I would be able to talk to the past users of this quirk, and they can also talk to me in my mind at times. I don't feel like putting up with them right now, so that is why I sealed the quirk away, and as for why Eri has a horn, it is a byproduct of her quirk. Her quirk allows her to rewind a living person to a previous point. Olivia was shocked at how powerful this small girl sleeping peacefully in her father's arms was. Olivia. Well, that is certainly shocking and more than understandable as to why you refuse to use it. I would, however, like to make an offer to the two of you about how you would like to come to Beacon College when the new term starts in 2 months. As she asked that, Ruby shot up with stars in her eyes. Ruby. What, are you being serious? It has always been my dream to go to Beacon, Ruby shouted. I quickly silenced her while I pointed at a sleeping Eri. Olivia. Yes, I am quite serious. Between your obvious skill, thanks to your aunt, and as for Mr. Sung over here, I believe he is more than capable based on the story he just told us. Olivia was hoping that Izuku would accept. She found the young man interesting and wanted to learn more about him. Glinda was hoping for the same thing as Olivia. She found herself strangely drawn to the young man. Izuku. I would be more than happy to join on one condition. Olivia raised an eyebrow and said, oh, and what would that be? Izuku. I would like to keep Eri with me as much as possible. I don't think it would be a good idea for her to be too far away from me right now, being that we are in a new environment. Olivia. I don't see a problem with that. She can sit in on lessons with you as long as she stays quiet. Otherwise, she is more than welcome to stay with Ms. Goodwitch or me, should the need arrive. As she said that, both smiled softly toward the sleeping girl. Izuku. Then I see no problem with me joining your school." As he said that, he gave his signature bright smile, causing all the women in the room to blush heavily. After calming down, Olivia looked at Ruby for her answer. "Ruby, you already know my answer. I have always dreamed of going there, but will it be fine if I attend earlier than everyone else?" Olivia: "Yes, it will be no problem. Leave everything to me." As she said this, Ruby gave a vigorous nod of her head. "Izuku, I do have one question. Where will Eri and I stay until we can attend Beacon?" The room was quiet until, before anyone could respond, Ruby practically shouted that they could stay with her and her family. Everyone looked at the red-headed woman in shock at her outburst, only for her to sit down, embarrassed. "Izuku, are you sure it will be okay? I don't want to be a burden on you and your family." Again, she nodded her head vigorously. Ruby: "Yay, it is just me, my sister, my mother, and my aunt living together, so it will be fine." Izuku: "What about your father?" At this, she looked down, and he knew that was not a question he should have asked. Ruby: "He is not with us anymore. He died while out on a mission." She said this while still looking down and tearing up a bit. Izuku pulled her into a soft hug and apologized for bringing up some painful memories. "It's okay, but what do you say? Will you join us?" Izuku: "We would be more than glad to join you and your family for the time being. We will be in your care, and please let me know if there is anything I can do to make up for your hospitality." He gave her a soft smile, causing her cheeks to become light pink. Izuku: "Before we go, could I ask one favor?" Olivia: "Certainly, how can I help?" Izuku: "Would it be possible for me to take a shower and change out of this before I go with Ruby? I would rather not have her family think that either A, she brought home a crazy blood-soaked killer, or the worse option B, she is under threat and in immediate danger." Ruby: "Oh yay, that would definitely happen." Izuku: "My point exactly," he said, throwing my one arm up. Both of the women laughed at my antics, with Ruby giggling as well, seemingly forgetting her earlier sadness. Olivia: "Yes, that can be arranged. We can even get you a change of clothes. We will need your sizes." Izuku: "No need for that. I have extra." Olivia raised her eyebrow at this, wondering where the boy was keeping these extra clothes. "I know what you're wondering, and let's just chalk it up to one of my abilities that I got from my father." Olivia nodded her head at this and led the young man to one of the vacant showers at the station. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Eri and Ruby playing tag. Izuku had left Eri sleeping with Olivia while he was showering and cleaning himself up. He was coated in a lot of blood, and a vast amount wasn't his. After he got all cleaned up, he tended to his wounds. He was surprised none of them noticed, especially with how Ruby was hugging him. Luckily none got on her, or if it did, the red of her outfit hid it. Izuku then changed into the only outfit he had, which he both loved and hated because it made him look like a villain more than his old clothes. Izuku walked back to the three women and saw them playing with a now awake Eri. She was the first to notice him and came running at Izuku and started hugging his leg. He looked down at her and smiled, and ruffled her hair. She just giggled. His attention then went back to the three staring at me in shock. Izuku: "Well, how do I look?" he asked while giving them a smirk and adjusting the glove on his right hand. The three: "So hot." Olivia: Blushing, ahem, "Why you look very lovely, better than in your old outfit." Glinda: Blushing as well. "Why yes, it suits you very well." Ruby, unlike the other two, was too flustered to speak a complete sentence, so she just stuck to nodding while blushing heavily. Izuku: "Well, if you are ready, Ruby, we can go to your place now." At this, Ruby shot up and ran towards me, happy as can be. She grabbed Izuku's arm and started to drag him out of the station. He had just enough time to grab Eri and say goodbye to the two other women and say he would see them again when he got to Beacon. Eri was waving bye to them as we were dragged out. They then started making their way to Ruby's house. Needless to say, Izuku was worried about how this would end. Izuku and Ruby were on their way to her house the whole time Ruby was talking about her family. Izuku didn't mind this, however, he found it cute how much she loved her family. Eri was sitting on top of Izuku's shoulders, looking at all the new sights around her. After a while, They finally arrived at her house, and it was just getting light out as they arrived. Izuku was wondering if her family would be worried about her being out all night and how they would react to her bringing him to her house. Izuku. I was wondering, won't your family be worried about you being out all night? Ruby quickly stopped and looked at Izuku, horrified. I will take that as yes. Ruby. I suddenly don't want to go home now. Izuku. Well, too late. We are already here, so we might as well get it over with. Ruby just slumped her shoulders and nodded her head solemnly. She walked up to the door, and before she could even knock, the door burst open, and a woman that looked like an older version of Ruby tackled her to the ground in a death hug. Izuku just watched this exchange with a sweat drop and a nervous smile. The woman was babbling on about how worried she was when she did not come home and how she could not get in contact with her. This continued for several minutes until she finally calmed down and let go of her daughter. When she did, she noticed the young man standing nearby with a silver-haired child sitting on his shoulders, just staring at them. Sorry you had to see that, but who are you, and why are you with my daughter? She asked with a slight tilt of her head. Izuku. Hello, my name is Izuku-san, and I think it would be easier if you asked your daughter Ms. Oh, where are my manners? My name is Summer Rose, but please call me Summer. Summer. It is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Song. Izuku. Please just call me Izuku. Oh, and this is my daughter Eri. Say hi, Eri, he said, giving Eri a soft pat on the back to motivate her. Eri. Hello, Miss Summer, Eri said with a slightly nervous smile and wave, then tried to hide behind her father's head unsuccessfully. Summer. Oh my you are adorable, the woman yelled, causing Eri to jump a little bit at the sudden loudness but give a shy smile. Eri. Chi thank you, Eri said, trying to crouch lower. Summer. Also, what do you mean I should ask my daughter why you are here? Wait, don't tell me, gasp, are you Ruby's boyfriend that she has been sneaking away to see? She asked with stars in her eyes. At this announcement, Ruby's face went bright red, and Izuku had a slight blush on his cheeks. Before either of them could protest what was just said, the door slammed again, and two blonde-haired women came running out. Both. Did we hear that Ruby brought home a boyfriend? Wow, I can't believe my little sis got a boyfriend before me. Before it went any further and to save Ruby some embarrassment that was sure to come her way, Izuku quickly cut in, stopping the three women in their tracks. Izuku. No, we are not dating. We just met a few hours ago. The three then looked at the man, confused, then the older of the two blondes asked. If you two are not dating, why are you here? She asked, slowly getting into a fighting stance along with the younger blonde and Summer. Izuku quickly threw up his arms, making sure he did not hit Eri in his haste or throw her off by accident. Ruby quickly used her semblance to move in front of Izuku and stop any fighting. Ruby, still blushing, quickly said, wait. Let me explain inside why he is here. It is for a good reason. This seemed to appease the three women for the time being, but they still kept an eye on the young man. How about we go inside and sit down and eat breakfast, and I will explain everything. Summer. Yeah, that works. I was just about to start making it before you showed up. Also, could you two introduce yourselves to Mr. Izuku, she said, looking at the two women beside her. They both nodded at this request. Hello. My name is Tiang Xiaolong. T. It is a pleasure to meet you. Hello there, cutie, my name is Yang Xiaolong. Yang. It's a pleasure meeting you. Maybe, after this talk, we could get to know each other better, she said with a seductive wink. Izuku. Hello, it definitely is a pleasure to meet you two as well. My name is Izuku-sung, and this small bean on my shoulders is Eri. Say hi, Eri, he said, patting Eri on the back again, ignoring Yang's antics as best he could but still caused a light blush to appear on his face. Eri. Papa, she kinda reminds me of that lady who was always chasing you that said weird things, she said this with a tilt of her head. When the three women heard the young girl call this young man, who was no older than 18, Papa, they nearly lost their footing and tripped, causing Izuku to rush to catch the three. He caught the two blondes in his right arm while simultaneously catching Summer in his left. This caused the three to blush at the young man who had just caught them quickly and was holding them. He helped them stand up and back away, looking nervous at what he just did. Izuku. Sorry for that. Didn't mean to cause you all to trip, he said, scratching the back of his head nervously. Summer cleared her throat with a slight blush to her cheeks. Ahem, it is quite all right, and thank you for catching us, but why is this young girl calling you Papa? Yay, thanks for the save just now, and I was wondering that as well, she said, looking away and trying to hide her blush. Yay, that was awesome. Just how strong and fast are you to catch us like that easily, she said with stars in her eyes and a slight blush. Izuku. I'm not that strong, or at least not as strong as I once was, and none of you are heavy in the slightest, felt like carrying a feather. This caused the three to blush deeper. Izuku looked over at Ruby, who was pouting and looking away. He patted her head, causing her to blush along with the rest. As he did this, he looked over at the rest. He responded, and I will get to that when we explain why I am here. How about I make breakfast while Ruby explains why I am here, and I will fill in anything she misses. The four looked shocked for a second while Eri looked excited until Summer stated. Summer. You can cook. Which caused Eri to chip in with her overexcited voice. Eri. Of course, Papa can cook. He is the best cook, and nothing will change my mind. This caused Izuku to laugh and stop patting Ruby's head, which caused her to pout after he stopped. He then patted Eri's head and smiled at her, which also caused Eri to smile, leaving the four women stunned at how adorable this moment was. After that moment, Izuku stopped patting Eri's head and looked at Summer and the other three with a questioning look. Summer looked at the other three, who shrugged at her silent question. Summer. With a solid review as that, I don't see a problem, but don't take offense. We will keep an eye on you since we just met. Izuku. None taken whatsoever. It never hurts to be cautious, he said with his 1000-watt smile, causing the four to blush again. So shall we go in and get to explaining everything? The others nodded and started to walk to the house. Over the next half hour, while Izuku was cooking, Ruby explained everything that happened while she was out last night. She also explained who Izuku was and why he was there. Izuku had to cut in every so often when Ruby started to ramble or get off topic. By the time she had finished retelling the story about Izuku's and Eri's life, the three were in tears and hugging Eri tightly, much to her enjoyment. Summer tried to tackle Izuku into a death hug, but he stopped her with ruler's authority. Izuku. Sorry, Miss Summer, as much as I would like a hug from someone as beautiful as you, I am cooking, and that would leave quite a mess if I fell. He said this smiling at her. Summer was blushing deeply, hearing he would love to have a hug from her, and he thought she was beautiful. The other women were pouting about how easy he was flirting with Summer. Breakfast will be ready in about 5 minutes, so wash up and sit at the table. Also, could one of you help Eri? Eri. I don't need help, Papa. I am a big girl now, she said with a pout, causing Izuku to chuckle. Izuku. Sure, you are Snowball, the biggest and strongest girl I know, but even the strongest needs to ask for help every once in a while. Eri. But you never did. You always did it by yourself. Izuku. Not true, I always had help. Did you forget about Uncle Igras or the others? He said with a laugh, feeling the hurt coming from his shadow at the now sad Shadow Warriors. Eri. No, I will never forget any of my uncles. They always kept me safe. Izuku. Then you know I never fight alone, I always have my family beside me, watching my back. Izuku could feel the gratitude of the Igras and the others. Even if he did not have a solid connection with the others, he could still feel their presence in his shadow, just waiting for his return to his former power. The best he could describe how it feels is like in a video game, being set back to level 1 but keeping all of your skills but unable to use them to their full potential. But this gave Izuku some peace, knowing they were still watching over him. Ruby. Who is Uncle Igras? She asked with a confused look on her face and the others. This caused Izuku to flinch because he forgot they didn't know what his powers were. Izuku quickly stepped in before Eri could say any more about him. Izuku. Food is done. Come and get it while it is hot, he said while plating the food and setting it on the table. The four quickly washed up, tea helping Eri much to the others' sadness. After they were done, they sat at the table and looked at the breakfast made for them. It was a relatively simple-looking breakfast of eggs, bacon, toast with jam, and pancakes. But it looked delicious to the starving five. Izuku smiled at them and said, "Dig in." That was all the encouragement they needed. They all collectively grabbed a fork and took a bite of something different. As they did, as soon as the food entered their mouth, Izuku heard a moan escaping all of them. "Ruby. These are the best eggs I have ever had in my life," Ruby moaned with Summer, who agreed with her. "Yang. This bacon is cooked to perfection. It has the right amount of crunch and is not burnt at all," she said, stuffing 3 more into her mouth. "Gee. These pancakes are so delicious. They are as soft as a cloud and taste like heaven on a plate," she said as she almost literally stuffed a whole pancake into her mouth. Eri sat there enjoying her food because she knew her papa was the best cook. After the outburst of the 4, they sat quietly eating, just enjoying the magnificent food that was prepared for them. After everyone was stuffed with Izuku's cooking, they went to the living room to finish the talk from earlier. "Summer. I think I speak for everyone when I say we don't mind if you stay until Beacon opens up for the year." She was nodding with a smile on her face. At the same time, Yang had a smirk and an evil glint in her eye. "Yang. Of course, we don't have a problem having a hottie who can cook as well as you staying here, and as a bonus, we get to have this cute little snowball stay as well." Izuku, tired of her flirting, decided to use an old tactic he had learned to use against Midnight when she would chase him. So he turned to Yang with a seductive smirk on his lips, sending a shiver down the 4 women's spines. "Izuku. I didn't know I was a mirror because the only hottie I see is you." This confused her for a second until she understood what he meant, causing her to blush profoundly and start stuttering. "Yang. What? I think I need to step outside FF for ABB bit." She quickly stood up and made her way to the door. "It is getting really hot in here." The other 3 were shocked at what had just transpired in front of them. Yang was never flustered and was the one who was usually teasing everyone around her. Had run away after getting a taste of her own medicine. The 3 turned back to look at Izuku, who was still smirking. "Gee. How did you do that? I honestly thought it was impossible to make her that flustered. I can embarrass her but never that much." This caused Izuku to laugh and confused them even more. "Izuku. When I was a vigilante back in my world, there was this woman named Nimari Kayama. Her hero name was Midnight. She had the power to put others to sleep with an aroma she produced from her skin. She would constantly try and catch me, but she never could. She dressed very seductively and acted in the same way for people to get close to her so she could put them to sleep. It didn't work on me, and I found out that all of it was just an act and that she was, in fact, very innocent underneath it all. So what I did was get very good at flirting so that way I could escape her while she was flustered. I have found that the more flirty they are the weaker they are. 2 cheesy lines are genuine compliments. I wouldn't say I liked doing that because it felt like I was playing with her heart, but it was either that or getting caught in the beginning. But every word I have ever said was true. I don't like lying or playing with people's feelings because I know how that feels." The 3 were shocked at what he said and wondered just how good he was. They were all thinking about what would happen if it was turned on them. Needless to say, none of them wanted that to happen, yet. After that, they just talked and got to know about each other until Yang came back in after cooling down. After a while, Izuku said he was heading out for a bit with Eri. They asked where he needed to go and if he needed help to find it. He explained that he would look for a job to get some clothes for himself and Eri, otherwise, they wouldn't have any. They tried to say they would help him out, but he refused, saying he did not want to be more of a burden, and he was grateful enough that they were letting them stay. So Izuku picked up Eri and put her on his shoulder, and walked to the door, and while they were focused on him, he commanded 4 of his shadows to go to their shadows and watch over them. After he left, he decided to run back to the city. Eri was enjoying the wind in her hair with how fast he ran. Once he made it to the city, he walked around the city, taking in the sights and smells of this new world that he was thrust into. After some time, he found a friendly tavern with a help wanted sign on the door. He walked into the establishment and saw a few people here and there but nothing overwhelming. Izuku walked up to the man standing behind the counter, cleaning a glass. He was almost as tall as Izuku but looked like a bear with the human form. No, he is not a faunus. He is just massive. He had brown hair that rested at his shoulders and hazel eyes, and a massive beard. Izuku. Excuse me, sir, you wouldn't still be looking for someone to work with, would you? The man behind the bar looked at Izuku and the child on his shoulders. Man. Name's Cliff. Cliff. And yeah, we still are. What are you good at? Izuku. I can cook and sing a bit. Cliff. How good is a bit? Eri. My papa is the best cook. Everything he makes is amazing, and he is a great singer. He always sings to me to put me to sleep or when I have a nightmare. Eri cut in with stars in her eyes and a smile that could kill a man with how bright it was, causing some of the people who were close to chuckle and Izuku to blush in embarrassment at how his daughter was praising him. Cliff. Chuckling, well, with a review like that, I think the least I can do is give you a chance to prove yourself. What do you say? Izuku, who was still embarrassed, nodded his head. Izuku. Which would you like me to do, sing or cook? Cliff. Both, and the patrons who are here will decide what happens since the ones that are here are my regulars, so they will be the main ones you deal with. This got the attention of everyone in the place because it had been a while since the old owner had done something like this. Everyone was getting excited to see what the young man could do. Izuku looked around at all the faces showing different levels of excitement, and all he could do was sigh. Izuku. That's fine. Can I ask you to watch my daughter while I am doing this? As he asked this, he also ordered Igris to go into Eri's shadow and watch over her. Cliff. Yay, I will watch her, so what do you want to do first? He asked as he patted a chair behind the counter, signaling to put the tiny girl there. Izuku. I will sing first to get that out of the way. Izuku did as instructed and then walked to the stage at the corner of the tavern. On the stage was a piano. He walked up to it and looked back at the owner. Izuku. What genre do you want me to play? Cliff. How about Love Lost? Izuku. I think I got just the song and made it myself as well. This caught Cliff's interest, and he signaled one of the regulars to record this. The regular did as instructed, but he also started streaming it. Izuku sat at the piano and ensured everything worked properly. He took a deep breath and started to play. During the song, not a single noise was made in the tavern. They all just sat and listened to this young man's song. They could hear the hurt in his voice at having loved someone and it falling apart, but him still wanting to work it out and be with the one he still loved. The regular who was streaming this looked at the chat, and everyone was asking who this person was and that he was singing so well. At the Rose Xiaolong household. Ruby. I wonder what Izuku is up to. He has been gone for hours now. Yang. What, worried about your new boyfriend? Yang asked with a mischievous smile. Ruby. WW, what are you talking about? We are not dating. We just met yesterday, Ruby said, blushing fiercely and punching Yang's shoulder, much to her amusement. Suddenly Ruby's scroll went off with a notification from HuntTube about a live stream coming from her aunt's favorite tavern. She pulled it out and was shocked to see who was on it. What is Izuku doing at a tavern, and why is he sitting at a piano? Everyone. What? They all quickly ran over to Ruby and looked at her scroll. They see Izuku sitting at a piano and looking like he is about to play something. They watched as he started to play the piano, and when he started to sing, they were all speechless at how good he was. As the song continued, they wondered who he was singing about to be able to sing with such emotions. Summer and Tiang were thinking about their now dead husband and started to tear up. Both were then hugged by their daughters and finished listening to the song that was being sung. Summer. He is so good. I wonder why he was singing in the first place, she said, wiping the tears from her eyes. Ruby. It says he is trying out for a job at the tavern Auntie Quill likes to go to when she is in town, she replied, still hugging her mother. Yang. We will have to ask him about that song when he gets back. Everyone nodded their head at this. They returned to doing what they were doing before but couldn't get Izuku out of their heads. Thinking about what this young man must have gone through to sing such a heart-wrenching song. Back at the tavern, after he had finished his song and everyone digested it, they all stood up and applauded the young man's song. Izuku stood up and bowed to the crowd and walked back to the counter where Cliff was standing with Eri, who was jumping in her seat at her father's standing ovation. Izuku smiled at her and gave her a hug which she happily returned. After he broke the hug, he looked at Cliff. Izuku. Well, how was it? Cliff. Laughing, if you cook as good as you sing, then I can't wait to try what you make. He stated while slapping Izuku on his back, nearly knocking the other man over with his strength, which shocked the young man, but Izuku smiled at the big man nonetheless. Just make something simple, no need to get fancy. We are a tavern, not a 5-star restaurant. Izuku. Sounds good. Where is your kitchen? Cliff. Door is right there. Let's see what you got. At that, Izuku made his way to the kitchen. He looked around to see what he could make. After looking around, he got to work. He decided to go simple as Cliff suggested, making steak and potatoes. He threw on the steak, and while it was searing in the pan, he threw in butter, garlic, thyme, and a few other spices, then basted it continuously as the steak finished cooking. As that was cooking, he made some simple garlic potatoes with cheese. As he finished the steak and cooked it to a nice medium well, he plated everything and brought it out. Meanwhile, outside everyone was waiting eagerly for what he was cooking. They could smell it from where they were sitting. Cliff was glad he would be the one to judge this, much to the other patron's annoyance. When Izuku walked out with the plate in hand, Cliff already had his fork and knife in hand waiting. Izuku sat the plate in front of Cliff, and to Cliff's surprise, the young man filled what was told and made a relatively simple meal. It looked delicious nonetheless, so he quickly cut off a piece of the steak and put it in his mouth. He was impressed with what Izuku had done. He had kept it simple, but it still melted in his mouth. Like the potatoes, the garlic did not overwhelm anything else, and the cheese added made it somewhat tastier. Before he knew it, he had finished the plate, much to the other patron's annoyance because they wanted to try the dish that had the old owner so enraptured. Izuku. Well, how was it? Cliff. Well, kid, I got one question for you, he asked with his hair covering his face. Izuku. Yes, sir. He asked, getting worried. Cliff. When can you start? He looked up with a big smile on his face, much to Izuku's relief. Izuku. I can start immediately if you want, but is it fine if I bring my daughter? I don't really have anyone to watch her. Cliff. Yay, that's fine. She seems like a good kid. She was quiet the whole time you were in the kitchen, so I don't see a problem with it. But if anything happens, it is on you to deal with, and for work, you can start tomorrow. That work for you, kid? He asked, raising a bushy eyebrow at Izuku. Izuku. That works just fine. Can't wait to start, he said, giving a smile that brightened up the room and caused some of the others to smile as well. After he finished talking to Cliff about his work schedule, he picked up Eri and said he would see him tomorrow, and left. After he left, Izuku and Eri walked around a bit more till evening set in, and they made their way back to Ruby's house. As soon as he knocked on the door, he was dragged in by a very excited Ruby and Yang. They quickly sat him down and started asking questions a mile a minute. Izuku. Will you two calm down? I can barely understand what you are saying, but first, can you point me to the bedroom so I can put Eri to sleep? Then I will answer all your questions. Summer. Yes, down the hall and 2 doors to the left is our guest room. Izuku. Thank you, Ms. Summer. I will be right back once she is asleep. He smiled at her and walked to where he was told. After putting Eri to bed, he walked back out to the expectant faces of the 4 women. Izuku just sighed and sat down. Okay, one at a time, starting with Summer. Summer. Why would you go work at a tavern? Izuku. Because they were hiring, and I needed a job, so why not, and how did you know I was in a tavern? Summer. Someone was live streaming you while playing the piano. Izuku. Oh, that explains it, Summer nodded. Okay, the Yang, your turn. Yang. Yes, why didn't you tell us you could sing? Izuku. You never asked, and we just met each other today, so we haven't got a chance to get to know each other. Yang. Oh yeah, Izuku. Okay, Ruby next. Ruby. Did you write that song, and have you written others? Izuku. Yes, I did, and yes, I have. I used it as a way of managing my emotions or as a way to express myself. Ruby. Oh, are you okay now? At this question, Izuku just shrugged at this. Izuku. I am better now. Eri helped a lot when my dad saved me. I was all but emotionless because of everything, but she helped me get the rest of my emotions back. He would smile softly at this. Yang. Didn't your father try and help? Izuku. He would try, and it worked a bit, but Eri was the main one to help. Summer. That is so sweet. The four were happy for the young man but at the same time were heartbroken hearing that he was emotionless. Izuku. Thank you. I think it is your turn, Ms. Tiang. T. Please just call me T, and my question is, who was that song about? At this, the other three women would perk up and listen to this. Izuku would scratch the back of his head and chuckle at this. Izuku. Well, back in my world, there was this woman I liked a lot, but she was a villain because of what happened in her life. We knew each other as kids and were close even though she was a bit older than me. But after an accident where she was thought to have died, she became a villain to try and kill her abusive father. I met her again on one of my patrols and recognized her instantly even though she had changed a bit. At this point, Izuku was tearing up a bit. I was so happy to see her that I ran up to her before I could do anything. She stopped me and said she was not the same person I used to love anymore. I told her I didn't care, I was just happy she was alive. But she refused and ran away. I tried to find her again but was unable to. The next time I saw her was at the last battle before I got sent here. She got caught in the blast along with the person I was fighting and me, so I have no clue what happened. As they were listening to Izuku's story, T and Summer were thinking about their husband, who had died while hunting a group of Grimm. Their sister-in-law blamed herself for his death even though no one blamed her. Meanwhile, Ruby and Yang went over and hugged Izuku tight. He gratefully accepted and hugged back just as tight. After a bit of sitting there in silence, Izuku let go of the two. Much to their disappointment, he wiped his eyes and gave the two a smile causing them to blush. Izuku. Thank you for that. I needed it, Ruby. And no problem, it was the least we could do. You didn't have to tell us all that, but you did. Yang. Yay, plus I did enjoy the hug. It was very nice, Yang said with a seductive smirk causing Izuku's cheeks to darken a bit and Ruby to pout at her sister's antics. Izuku. If there is nothing else, I am going to sleep. I have to work in the morning, he said, getting up from his seat. Summer. Wait, what will you do with Eri while you are working? Izuku. I will bring her with me. I got permission from the boss, and he said it was okay. T. You could leave her here. We can watch her. I don't think any of us would disagree with watching the little angle. Izuku. I couldn't do that. Don't you all have jobs yourself? Summer. We are both huntresses, and we took some time off while Yang was getting ready for Beacon to help her out, but now we get to have Ruby join with her on training. Ruby's face went pale at this, having seen Yang's training. So we don't have anything to do now so we can watch her. Izuku. We will see. I'll leave it up to her what she wants to do, but I do appreciate it. He said as he walked away to the room he and Eri were sharing. As he got into the bed after changing his clothes, he fell into a dreamless sleep, the first one in a long time. Over the next 2 months, Izuku would work at the Drunken Huntsman and would become well known in the area. He would be someone you could come and talk to about your problems, and he would give advice to help out. He also became a bit famous because of his singing and cooking. Whenever they could, the owner would have someone livestream it, much to Izuku's annoyance. There was only one incident that happened when he was working, but we will talk about that at a later date. Eri would sometimes come with him to his work, or she would stay with her new aunties and big sisters as she would start to call them soon after their arrival to this world. During his time off, Izuku would train with Yang and Ruby and would grow closer to all 4 women during this time. They were all surprised at how well Izuku was with different weapons ranging from daggers to a scythe, much to Ruby's excitement. He explained that his father's primary weapon was twin daggers, and Izuku followed in his footsteps but also learned how to use other weapons just in case something happened to his favorite weapons. After the 2 months of training, he would gain back some strength to where he could keep up with Igras in hand-to-hand but would still get trashed when it came to fighting with weapons. We start with Izuku with Eri on his shoulders and standing next to Ruby and Yang, looking out the window. They were all admiring the view from the ship as Eri had stars in her eyes from how much she could see. Ruby was nervous about being at a college and being younger than everyone else that was attending. Yang was trying to cheer her baby sister up. As they were doing that, Izuku watched a screen showing the news. News reporter. And in other news, there was another robbery involving a dust store last night. It was done by none other than the infamous criminal Roma Torchwick. She is still at large, and any information that can be obtained should be given to police immediately. Izuku was staring at the picture and remembered the first person that he had run into when he had arrived in this world. He wondered what drove her to steal all this dust and lead a life of crime. If he ever got the chance, he would ask. He was dragged out of his thoughts by someone rushing by and violently retching into the corner into a nearby trash can. He looked over and saw a young woman with blonde hair slightly darker than Yang's. She wore short blue pants and armor on her chest and arms with boots that came up to her knees. As Ruby and Yang were freaking out about having vomit on their shoes, Izuku walked over to the woman and asked, "Hey, are you okay?" "Yay, I am just having a bit of motion sickness. By the way, my name is..." She was cut off by throwing up again into the trash. Izuku stood by her and rubbed her back to try and ease her discomfort a bit. Not too long later, the ship stopped, and people started to get off. As Izuku got off, he saw Yang leaving Ruby with a group of people that he assumed were her friends. Izuku noticed that in her worry about what to do, she was about to hit some suitcases on the ground, so Izuku gently grabbed her with the ruler's authority to keep her from running into them. She still ended up knocking over one of the ones that were near her feet, causing her to trip even with Izuku's help. "What are you doing?" A girl in a blue and white dress and boots yelled at Ruby. "Ruby. Sorry. White. Sorry. Do you have any idea of the damage you could have caused?" she said while pointing at Ruby. "Ruby. She said while picking up the case to hand it to the white-haired woman. "White. This is dust mined and purified from the Schnee quarry." As she started to go on, Izuku noticed that as she was gesturing about, dust started to fly in the air. This, in turn, started to make Ruby have to sneeze. As Izuku noticed this, he used ruler's authority to drag the white-haired woman away just as a small explosion happened and dropped the dust in her hand. The white-haired woman was wondering how that happened but quickly brushed it off as she started to lay into Ruby again. Ruby, who had had enough at this point, said, "Ruby. Hey, I said I was sorry, princess," as the white-haired woman was about to say something. She was cut off by a black-haired woman who had a black bow on her head and was wearing a black and white outfit. She was holding the bottle of red dust the white-haired woman had dropped when Izuku pulled her away. "Black. Heiress, actually Weiss Schnee, heiress to the Schnee Dust Company, one of the largest producers of energy propellant in the world. Weiss. Finally, some recognition. Black. The same company infamous for its controversial labor forces and questionable business partners. Weiss. WH. How dare yo. The nerve of," she would just huff, grabbing the dust bottle from the black-haired woman and walking away. Ruby yelled after her. "Ruby. I promise I'll make it up to you." Weiss would not even acknowledge her Ruby and would then turn to try and talk to the black-haired woman but would see her walking away. "Guess I am not the only one having a bad day. Welcome to Beacon," she would say as she fell to the ground and lay on her back. As she was lying there, two shadows covered her. The first one would stick out a hand and say, "Hey, my name is Jane." "Ruby. Ruby, thanks," she would say as she took the outstretched hand. "Wait, aren't you the girl who threw up on the ship?" "Izuku. That's rude. Ruby, motion sickness is a real thing," he would say as he made his presence known. "Ruby. Izuku," she would exclaim as she tackled him into a hug, making sure not to knock off Eri. "Were you watching the whole time?" "Izuku. Yay, sorry for not stepping in. I figured you had it covered," he said as he petted her head, causing her to smile at the touch. "Also, it is nice to meet you properly, Jane. This time, under better circumstances. My name is Izuku Sung." By the way, his comment would make Jane blush in embarrassment at how they had met. "Jane. Yay, sorry about that, and thanks for the way that helped. My full name is Jane Arc, short, and sweet men love it." This caused both Izuku and Ruby to raise an eyebrow. "Both. Do they, Jane?" "They will, or at least that is what my mom tells me, never mind." Izuku. Chuckling, "Well, we should get going before the opening ceremony starts," he said as he started walking, he had already memorized where most of the main buildings were from the directory he found online. I am skipping here. Nothing changed from the original series. Now we skip to the nighttime. As everyone was getting ready for the nighttime, we went to Ruby, who was playing with Eri while Izuku was finishing up in the shower. Yang plopped down right next to the two and pulled Eri into her lap, and hugged her, causing her to giggle. Everyone wondered why a child was here, but they didn't care enough to ask. Yang. It's like a giant sleepover here, she would say as she tickled Eri, causing her to giggle again. Ruby. Yay, but I don't think our moms would like all the boys, she said, looking around. Yang. No, but I do, she said, looking around at all the guys, but under her breath, she said, too bad Izuku isn't out here. I would love to see that, she said with a seductive smirk. Eri looked at her and tilted her head. Eri. What did you say, big sis Yang? Yang. Nothing snowy, just thinking out loud. Eri. Oh, Papa used to do that all the time. When he found something interesting, he would mumble and mumble about the thing so fast it would make my head spin. As they were talking, the doors to the room were suddenly opened, and 3 boys came running in with clothes that looked familiar to the 3. Big sis Ruby, aren't those Papa's clothes, she said, pointing at the 3. Ruby. I think so. From across the room, they heard the 3 talking to who they assumed was the leader. Random asshole 1, raw 1, hey, Cardin, look what we got from Mr. Pretty Boy. Cardin. Ha 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 ha, that will serve him right for thinking he is better than us. Raw 2. Yeah, why'd I hear boss music? As he said that, the door was violently kicked in, and a very pissed off Izuku. The thing that shocked so many and made almost every girl in the place blush fiercely and nosebleed as he walked in with just a towel wrapped around him. But as they looked at him, their eyes widened in shock and horror, especially Ruby and Yang. His body was covered in scars and burned skin. They all looked old, as if they had been with him for years. He walked up to the 4 men holding his clothes, and as he got closer, the air around them got colder and colder. Izuku. You see, I like a good prank as much as the next guy, heck. I have pulled my fair share back home to annoy people who deserved it. But you crossed the line when you took my underwear, so now I will ask just once. Please return my clothes before I snap, he said, giving the sweetest smile to the 4. Cardin. And why would we do that, Mr. Pretty Boy? Don't think just because you are all scared up that we will be afraid of you. As he was talking, Izuku's smile dropped as he uppercut Cardin, sending him flying back into the wall and cracking it a bit. Shocking everyone with how strong he was, the other 3 quickly threw down his clothes and ran to help their leader out of the wall. Izuku leaned down and picked up his clothes, and, without looking back, walked out of the room to change. Yang wiped her nose and looked down at the small girl in her lap. Just how strong is your Papa Snowy? Eri. I don't know, but he has always been the strongest Papa there is, she said with the brightest smile ever seen, almost blinding the people who were around them. Yang. You are just the most adorable little thing ever, Yang would say as she hugged Eri tight, causing her to giggle again. Izuku. I couldn't agree more. She is my special little snowball, he would say, appearing out of nowhere, scaring a few nearby people. Ruby and Yang. Ah, the 2 shrieked at the sudden scare. Eri. Papa. This shocked some people that this tiny girl was calling this man their age, Papa. She ran up and hugged her papa's leg. He looked down and smiled at her and pet her head, which made her smile more. That was so cool, Papa. You punched the mean man, and he went flying away, she said, imitating Izuku's actions, thus causing Izuku to laugh at her antics. Izuku. I am glad you enjoyed yourself. Do you want me to sing you a song before you go to sleep like usual? She got stars in her eyes and nodded her head so fast it looked like it would fly off. This caused Izuku to laugh, laughing. Okay, calm down, Snowball, your head will fly off if you keep going that fast. Izuku picked her up and was about to head outside to the terrace when Yang and Ruby stopped him. Both were blushing in embarrassment, and Ruby was the one to ask her question first. Ruby. Is it fine if we join as well to listen, she asked shyly, looking down and playing with her fingers while Yang looked off to the side, trying to hide her blush. Izuku gave them both a smile that caused them to blush more. Izuku. Sure, I would be more than happy to sing for you two as well, he said, continuing his walk to the terrace. He sat Eri down on one of the benches, and Ruby picked her up and sat her on her lap as Yang sat next to Izuku. So, any suggestions for the genre of song you three would like? At this question, the three would huddle close together, and after the discussion, they would look at Izuku and say in unison. The three, you choose. Izuku. Okay then, I think I got just the song since all I got is a guitar. He pulled his guitar out of his inventory, much to the shock of Ruby and Yang. Both. How did you do that? They shouted, which caused someone to open the door and shout at them. Weiss. Will you be quiet? There are some people in here trying to sleep, she said angrily. Izuku. Sorry about that. I was going to sing real quick for them before we slept. If you would like, you can join us. Weiss looked over at who had just talked and saw the man from earlier who had walked into the room in nothing but a towel and punched someone. Realizing who it was, she blushed profoundly, remembering what he looked like. Then his words caught up to her. Weiss. If you are inviting me, it would be rude to decline. She sat down on the bench next to Ruby and looked at Izuku, much to the annoyance of Yang and Ruby, who wanted it just to be them. Izuku. I wrote this song based on an old movie I watched with my dad. As he made sure the guitar was tuned, he started to play. As he played, the group just sat and listened, but little did they know they had an audience. Because when Weiss walked out, she didn't shut the door all the way. So as Izuku started to play, it was heard inside, which caused some people to come to the door to hear it better. During the song, Eri had fallen asleep in Ruby's lap, and Ruby was not far behind her. So Izuku put away his guitar and picked up Eri. He turned around and saw all the people standing. When they noticed he was looking at them, they scattered except for a black-haired woman and Jane. He just sighed and started walking inside. When he got in, Jane was the first to speak. Jane. Quietly, that was so cool, you sang so well, I enjoyed it, she said with the biggest smile on her face. Yes, it was terrific. I also enjoyed it, the black-haired woman agreed. Izuku. Thank you. I always love when people enjoy my music. He smiled at the two, but if you don't mind, I should put her down to get comfortable, he gestured at Eri with his head. And the two nodded and went on their way as well. Izuku went to where he was sleeping and put Eri down, and lay down next to her. She snuggled up to him. Izuku wrapped his arm around her and started to fall asleep until he heard the sound of a picture being taken. He looked back and saw Ruby and Yang with their scrolls out and taking pictures of them. Izuku. You better send me those. They nodded and lay down next to the two and got into their bed. After a while, everyone went to sleep and enjoyed the quiet night with excitement for tomorrow. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Eri eating a candy apple while sitting on Chibi tank. When morning came, Izuku awoke to the feeling of two heaving feelings on his chest. This confused him greatly as he was used to Eri sleeping on his chest, and he could tell one of them was Eri. So he had no clue who the other was. He opened his eyes and was treated by the sight of white and blonde hair. At first, he thought Yang had snuck into his bed again as she sometimes did with Ruby when they were living together, but her hair was too short and a darker shade than Yang's. Jane. So comfy. This caused Izuku's face to be darker, and he tried to shake her awake quietly. She started to wake up. She sat up and rubbed her eyes to get the sleep out of them. When she was done and her eyes focused, she saw a very red Izuku and an asleep Eri. She was about to scream, but Izuku stopped her by putting his hand to her mouth, thus causing her to blush at how close he was. Izuku. Before you scream, you were in my bed, so please don't wake up my daughter. She nodded her head to signal she understood. Okay then. Now I am going to remove my hand. Please be quiet, it is still early, and I don't want to wake up anyone else. Too late care to explain Izuku. This caused said person to look over and see two very angry women, one red and the other yellow. Both had a heavy jealous aura around them and were smiling sweetly, which caused Izuku to sweat profusely. Izuku. I was just about to ask that myself, and please stay quiet. Eri is still asleep, he said, signaling with his head. His attention was then brought back to Jane, who was still blushing furiously. So why were you in my bed, Jane? Jane. Well last night I had TT to use the restroom, but I was still half asleep, so I thought I was getting back into my bed, but here we are now. Izuku. So it was just an accident. She nodded her head rapidly at this. Sighs, since it was an honest accident. No harm, no foul, right you two, he said, looking at the two now pouting women. Both. Yay, I guess, they said, still pouting. Izuku pet both of their heads to try and cheer them up, causing them to blush. Izuku would get up and stretch, giving the three women a look at his abs, causing them to blush deeper. Izuku. Okay, I am gonna get ready, and I will be back. He started to walk off. He had Igris go into Eri's shadow to watch over her as she was asleep and he was getting changed. When he was done, he woke her up to get her changed. During this time, the three went back to sleep and waited till it was closer to the time they were to meet up. Izuku got himself and Eri something to eat and went to where they were to meet. During the walk up the hill, Eri had fallen asleep again in Izuku's arms. He sat down under a tree and petted her head as she slept. 2 hours later, Olivia and Glinda arrived in the spot and saw the most adorable sight. Sitting under a tree was Izuku sleeping with Eri's head on his lap with his hand on her head. Glinda immediately took out her scroll and took a picture, and saved it. Neither wanted to mess with this cute moment. It was, however, interrupted by the sound of the students approaching rather loudly, causing Izuku to wake up and look around. He saw both Olivia and Glinda standing near him and Glinda pointing her scroll at him. Izuku. I assume you took a picture of me, and I expect a copy sent to me. Glinda nodded and smiled at him, which caused him to smile back. Okay then, let's get this started. Would you mind watching Eri as I go through this test? Glinda. We would be happy to watch her for you. Olivia nodded in agreement. Izuku thanked the two women and started to wake up Eri and explain what was going on to her while listening to Olivia, who was explaining the test to the others. He left 2 soldiers in Eri's shadow to protect her if something happened and got in line behind the rest of the students. Soon it was Izuku's turn to get launched, and as he was about to step on the platform, Eri called out. For simplicity's sake, everything goes like canon for everyone else except for the people Izuku runs into whenever he jumps in. Eri. Papa, do your best. Izuku would look back and smile at her before stepping on the pad and getting launched into the forest. As he was getting close to hitting the ground, he used Ruler's authority to slow down his fall by grabbing a tree and pulling himself towards it. Standing in the tree, he heard something moving around, so he used stealth and disappeared. He watched as something came out of the bushes and sniffed around. It was on all fours and looked like a bear. Izuku remembered reading about them. They were called ursas, strong but not very fast compared to Beowulfs. As Izuku sat and observed it for a while, he suddenly heard 2 voices coming toward him. The Ursa heard it as well and went charging toward the voices. Izuku, being quicker, made it to where the voices were and saw Jane talking to a red-haired woman wielding a spear and shield in a gold and brown outfit. Jane. I'm telling you we are going the right way, Pyrrha. It's just over this hill. As she said that, he moved some bushes aside and came face to snout with the Ursa. She quickly backpedaled but was too slow about it, and the Ursa was about to swipe its paw at her but was stopped by something slamming down on its head, cracking its skull and making a small crater in the ground. Pyrrha, who was about to throw her spear to kill it, was shocked at what just happened but kept her spear ready. As they both watched, Izuku dropped his stealth and appeared in front of them, much to their shock. Jane. Izuku, she would call out, what are you doing here? Pyrrha. And was it you who just did that to the Ursa? She said, pointing at the decaying corpse of the beast. Izuku would scratch the back of his head and say, yeah, that was me. I figured you would have taken it out easily, but I decided to step in and couldn't let a friend of mine potentially get hurt and do nothing. Just not the person I am. Jane. Why you think of me as a friend? Izuku. Of course, but we can talk about that once this test is done, deal? She would smile at this and nod. Good, well, I better get going. Can't stay in one place for too long. Jane. You could travel with us. Izuku would shake his head at this. Izuku. You already have your partner for this. Now all you have to do is get what we came here for. I need to find mine if I get lucky. Jane would look down sad. Izuku would walk over and pet her head, which caused her to blush. I'll see you around when this is over. When this is over, you introduce me to your team. Jane. Yeah, I would love to, she said while smiling. Izuku. Good, then I will be seeing the both of you later, he said as he activated stealth and disappeared from in front of them. Pyrrha. Where did he go? This caused Izuku to chuckle silently as he walked away from this and asked Igris to stay behind to guard Jane in case something happened. He started walking in a random direction, coming across multiple Grimm. He observed them briefly, writing down his observations in a notebook. Try as he might, he has never been able to kick this one habit of his, not that he minded. It had always helped him when he was in a fight and calmed him. As he was wandering around, he came across multiple groups. One of the groups was Ruby. She was with a white-haired girl named Weiss. He felt somewhat bad for her because Weiss was in the middle of complaining about being paired up with Ruby. Izuku almost stepped in but stopped himself. He knew that if he stepped in, she would never grow as a person, so he stopped himself and walked away. The next group he came across was Yang and the black-haired woman he never got a name for. These two seemed to be doing better. Yang was being herself, making puns, and trying to annoy the black-haired woman. She, on the other hand, looked disinterested but kept her guard up, keeping an eye out for anything. Izuku noticed as she looked around that the bow on her head would twitch now and then when she heard something. He wondered why it was twitching but didn't think more about it. He quietly left the two alone, making his way to the ruins that he could see when standing on top of the trees. He continued what he was doing before and watched how Grimm acted. After a while, he arrived at the ruins and saw 4 groups of people standing around 4 totems that looked like chess pieces. Izuku decided to jump down and walked up behind them. The black-haired woman whipped around, her eyes in slits. Black. Who's there? Yang. Blake, what are you talking about? There is no one there. Yang said, looking around. Blake. I heard something just now, she continued to look around. It was at this moment that Izuku decided to drop his stealth, shocking 3 of the 4 groups. Ruby. Izuku. Ruby cried, I have been looking everywhere for you. Where have you been? She tackled Izuku, who chuckled at her antics and patted her head. This caused 4 others to emit a jealous aura and pout while the others looked on indifferently. Izuku. Chuckling, sorry, Ruby, I was wandering around and watching some of the Grimm. Blake. You were watching Grimm. Why? Izuku. I find them interesting and wanted to learn more about them and their habits. Weiss. Why would you want to learn more about them, and how long will you hug him, Ruby? This caused Ruby to blush and let go fast and step back and look down embarrassed. Ruby. Sorry, Izuku. I didn't mean to hug you for that long, she said, playing with her fingers which Izuku found cute. Izuku. It's fine, Ruby. I don't mind. You can do it anytime you want, and as for why I would want to learn more is simple. The more you know about an enemy, the easier they are to defeat. This caused Ruby's face to darken more and Weiss to nod at his logic. Yang. Does that include the rest of us? Because I wouldn't find hugging you, she said with a seductive smirk. Izuku, who was used to Yang's antics, immediately shot back. Izuku. Oh, I would be more than happy to hug a cutie, like you, Yang, he said with an equally seductive smile aimed directly at her. This caused Yang's face to go beet red, and steam came out of her ears. She turned around and walked to the pedestals, and looked at them. Under the glares of the other women present, she would say. Yang. Well, which one should we take, Blake? Blake just shrugged and grabbed the cannon piece. The rest, following Yang's attempt at a distraction, walked up and grabbed their cannon pieces. As they started to make their way from the ruins, Jane dropped her piece. It rolled away. She chased after it to catch it, and as she grabbed it, a claw smacked her to the ground. A Grimm that looked like a scorpion with a glowing tail. As the group heard what was happening behind them, they turned around and saw Jane on the ground and a Grimm standing over her, preparing to strike. They started to run towards her, getting ready to shoot their weapons. Izuku was outpacing them all. But he watched as the stinger started going towards her. He only had one option left at this point. Izuku. Igris. Jane's paw. I watched as the stinger from the Grimm came towards me. It looked to be moving in slow motion, but I could move to avoid it. My mind was going wild, thinking this was where I die and apologizing to my family for being a failure and not making it as I promised them. I had accepted that I was going to die until I heard someone yell. It sounded like Izuku. I had wished to get to know him better. He seemed like such a nice person. He and Ruby were the first friends I made when I arrived at Beacon. Izuku. Igris. I heard him yell this, which confused me at first because that was not my name, but then darkness overtook me. I heard a deep voice that didn't sound like anyone I knew. I watched as the stinger was cut off, and a man wearing black armor stood in front of me with a sword almost as big as him guarding me. Exit Pav. Everyone watched as a dark shadow appeared from Jane's shadow after Izuku said that name. They watched as this same shadow slashed off the Deathstalker's stinger and stood guard over Jane. As they watched this shadow attack the Deathstalker, it let out an ear-splitting shriek as it backed away. Everyone covered their ears and looked at the Deathstalker back away. A howl answered its shriek, and then another joined, followed by more in rapid succession. Then their blood ran cold as everyone heard a loud caw and saw a massive Nevermore fly overhead. Then they heard something moving in the woods and turned around and witnessed over 12 dozen different types of Grimm, mainly consisting of Beowulfs. They started to worry about how they would make it out when Izuku spoke up. Izuku. This is gonna sound crazy, you guys, but can you take out that big guy? Everyone looked at him like he had gone crazy. Weiss. We could if we worked together, but that still leaves all those Grimm at our backs, just waiting for us to drop guard and attack. She said, gesturing at the gathering Grimm. Izuku. I will deal with them. All I need to know is, can you take down the big guy? Yang. Are you crazy? No one can take down that many Grimm by themselves. Jane. Yeah, Izuku, think about this. Izuku. I have, and don't worry, I will be fine. I never fight alone. I didn't want you to find out this way, but we don't have much of a choice now, do we? As he said this, the Nevermore would make a pass and shoot some of its quills at the group. They barely managed to avoid them, with Igris pulling Jane out of the way. As I said, you all work together to take down the big guy. Igris, help them if necessary. I will deal with the cannon fodder behind us. When you are done, make your way back to the cliff. I will meet you there. Ruby. But, Izuku. Ruby, I need you to trust me. I got this, he said, looking back at Ruby with determination in his eyes. I promise I will make it back, and I never break a promise. Ruby would see the determination in his eyes and knew she could do nothing to dissuade him from this. Ruby. Fine, but you better make it back or else I will hate you forever. The others at her like she had gone crazy as well. Come on guys, we have a big bird to kill. She led them away to fight the Nevermore, leaving Izuku by himself against the small army of Grimm. All he could do was smile. It had been a while since he had faced these numbers without his full army of shadows by his side. But he was looking forward to this. He reached into his inventory and grabbed his father's first 2 daggers, Kasaka's Fang and Night Killer. He would then say a word he has not spoken since being in this new world. Izuku. Arise. As he said this one word, several shadows would appear from his shadow and stand beside him. He would stare down the charging Grimm with his shadow. Well, it's not all of you, but it's good to fight beside you, so shall we start this? He looked over at his shadows, and they nodded back at him. They would then charge the small army with Izuku in the front leading the charge. As they clashed, his wizards would fire fireballs into the back lines, taking out some of the weaker ones. Some of his shadows would be destroyed by the Grimm as they were still weaker than they used to be, but they managed to take out some of the Grimm. Izuku managed to take out 2 Alpha Beowulfs and 1 Alpha Ursa, but they managed to get a few swipes at him, cutting him up a bit. As he heard in the distance the screech of the Nevermore, all he could do was hope that they would be safe. He trusted them and knew that if they worked together, they could beat the monster in front of them. If worst came to pass, Igris was there to help them, and even if he was not at full power, that bird was still no match for him. So Izuku kept focused on fighting. With the help of his shadows, he managed to knock down more than half of the Grimm. The bad news was as the more he fought, the more showed up. He decided to try and scare them off but didn't know if this would work or not. He used his skill, bloodlust, and poured every bit of mana he could spare into the skill. This caused the Grimm to freeze in place, and some started whimpering in fear as they felt death clench them. They might be soulless creatures, but they were more animalistic than most people realized. Izuku had noticed this when watching them, so he hoped their survival instinct would be the same, having watched as this one man and shadow figures slaughtered their fellow Grimm with no mercy. They started to develop a fear of this man. This evolved into full-blown terror when Izuku used his skill, causing them to flee in absolute terror. As Izuku watched this, he let out a sigh of relief as he was starting to run low on both mana and stamina. He did miss his old strength, but he enjoyed the fight more so than he had in a while. He instructed his shadows to go back into his shadow with the rest and looked through Igris's eyes to see them finish off the Nevermore. They did this by launching Ruby using Weiss's glyphs and having Igris hold the Nevermore in place using his telekinesis to stop it from moving. After they were done with their fight, some wanted to go back and try and help Izuku, thinking that he was still fighting. They thought he was in danger, having felt that chilling presence earlier, and feared something terrible had happened. As they were about to run in his direction, they were stopped by Igris, who stood in their way and pointed towards the cliff they were to meet at. Yang tried to argue with Igris, but he stood firm and kept pointing at the cliff. Not backing down, Yang tried to go around him but was stopped each time. This started to annoy her. "Yang, don't you care what is happening to him right now?" Igris would answer her in a deep voice. "Igris, I trust in my liege. I know he will come back. He made a promise to Lady Ruby, and he has never once broken a promise he made," he said, standing firm in front of Yang. "You say you care for him, then you must trust him." This caused Yang and a few others to deflate that wanted to go help him. "Please just trust in him and do as he asked. I know he will be there." The group nodded their head solemnly and, with heads and worry in their hearts, made their way back. Izuku stopped watching when they started to make their way back and decided not to waste time and worry them more. Before he left, he looked back at the disappearing corpses of the fallen Grimm and thought to give something a try. His father was not able to make a shadow out of anything without mana, or that was corrupted mana. But during his battles against All for One and Antares, he learned how to extract shadows from both. Although the chance was highly slim of it working, but with all the corpses here, he might be able to get a few. So he said the word he had said many times before. "Izuku, arise." Last we left off, our heroes were on their way back, but let's look at someone else's view. We go to Olivia sitting under the tree Izuku was sleeping under earlier with Eri on her lap, playing with her. As Glinda stood away from them, pouting and watching the students progress through the test. She wanted to be the one to take care of Eri but lost the coin flip, so she was stuck watching these people fumble about. She did use this time to try and find Izuku, but he was nowhere to be found. Glinda kept looking for him. She was about to say something to Olivia but stopped as she witnessed Izuku slamming the head of an Ursa into the ground and saving Jane Arc. She watched as they talked for a bit, with Jane trying to convince Izuku to join them until he found someone. She watched him vanish into thin air as he refused and started to walk away. This shocked her, and she walked over to Olivia, who was now braiding Eri's hair. "Olivia, watch this." Glinda showed Olivia and Eri what had just happened with Izuku's disappearance. This confused Olivia greatly, but Eri spoke up. "Eri, Papa just disappeared." They both looked at the small girl in Olivia's lap. "Olivia, do you know what he did to do that, Eri?" "Eri, Papa once told me he got it from Grandpa and other things." Glinda, "What were those other things?" "Eri, Papa told me not to tell anyone about them unless he said I could, so I won't tell. Papa trusts me." "It's okay, Eri, we were just curious. We won't ask you any more about it, right Glinda?" Olivia said, shooting a look at her colleague. "Yes, that is right, Eri," Glinda said, nodding and going back to watching the students leaving Olivia with Eri. As this went on, students started to arrive back at the meeting spot with the artifacts they got. The only people out there were the 8 groups who still had to grab their artifacts and Izuku, who did not have a partner. She watched the ruins as said groups appeared and looked at the artifacts. She watched as Izuku appeared and was hugged by Ruby, causing her to become a bit jealous. Him saying something to Yang and causing her to blush and look away. She was so wrapped up in what was happening she didn't hear Olivia approach her from behind, holding Eri. "What is going on over here that has you so focused?" Olivia said, causing Glinda to jump and look back. "Nothing, just watching the last group grab their artifacts, but it seems Mr. Sung doesn't have a teammate, and there are only 2 sets left," Glinda said, showing Olivia the live view of the ruins. Olivia: "Oh, that is not good. Looks like we will be going with our other plan for him then if this is the case." Eri: "What other plan, Ms. Olivia?" Olivia: "You don't need to worry about it, little one. Nothing bad is going to happen." "Okay," Eri said, giving a blinding smile to the 2 women. As they were looking at Eri, they heard someone yell from the screen, and Eri perked up at this because she heard a name she was familiar with. Izuku. Igris. The 3 watched as a dark shadow appeared out of Jane's shadow and attacked the Death Stalker, about to impale her. They were interrupted from the screen by the sound of Eri yelling. "Eri! Uncle Igris!" The 2 women looked at the small girl and then at the screen at the Shadow Man. Then their eyes widened in horror as a horde of Grimm came out of the forest, and a giant Nevermore flew overhead. They watched as Izuku and Ruby argued, and then she and the other left Izuku alone. Glinda: "What are they doing leaving him by himself against all those Grimm?" Eri: "Don't worry, Ms. Glinda, my papa is strong." Olivia: "Eri, we understand your papa is strong, but that is still too much for one person to fight alone." Eri: "But papa is never alone," she said, tilting her head. This confused the 2 women. Glinda: "What do you mean, Eri?" "Watch," Eri said, pointing back at the screen, and so they did. They saw the small horde of Grimm charge and the lone warrior as they watched. Their anxiety was sky high, thinking they would watch a death, but that soon changed. They watched as Izuku said something, and all around him, shadows came out of his shadow. They watched as Izuku and his shadows fought the small army of Grimm, and Ruby and her group fought the giant Nevermore with the help of the shadow named Igris. They continued to watch as Izuku fought. They gasped as he was slashed by an Ursa, cutting his chest and leaving a nasty gash. But it seemed as if he didn't care. He was smiling and looked like he was having a good time. This confused the 2 women, but they were too worried about his well-being to question this at the moment. As they watched, they saw him slowing down and breathing heavily. This concerned them. They saw as he prepared to do something, and it looked like a purple aura appeared around him as they watched. Then suddenly, they felt a chill down their spine and sweat heavily, everyone but Eri. Olivia had only felt pressure before, and it was when she fought Salem. As they watched, they saw the Grimm freeze in fear and turn and run away as if their life depended on it. The 2 women wondered what this young man did that caused such fear in these Grimm. This battle was finished, so their attention went to the other ongoing battle. They watched as the 4 groups worked together and, with the Shadow's help, cut off the Nevermore's head. Once they were done, it looked like they were going to go towards Izuku's location but were stopped by the Shadow. He pointed in the direction they were to meet up and seemed adamant about it. Whenever they tried to move around him, he would get in their way. Glinda: "What are they doing, and why does the Shadow refuse to return to Mr. Sung?" Eri: "Papa probably told them to meet him here, and Uncle Igris is making sure they do as he said." The 2 women looked at the small girl, then back at the screen, and watched as the group of 4 made their way back with heads down. Their attention was then drawn back to Izuku, standing in the center of all the decomposing Grimm. He said something the camera could not pick up because it was too far away. The fact they heard him the first time only showed how loud he yelled. As they watched, their eyes widened in horror as 3 of the Alpha Grimm moved along with several others. Shadows rose out of the corpses, stood in front of Izuku, and bowed. He seemed to inspect them that told them something, and they disappeared into his shadow. He started walking in their direction and would soon arrive. The first group to arrive was the group of 4 in the shadow. As they approached, Eri jumped down and ran toward the Shadow Man. "Uncle Igris," Eri would say and jump towards him with the shadow barely catching her in time. Igris: "Princess Eri, what have I said about jumping toward people without warning?" "Sorry, Uncle, I was just happy to see you," Eri would say, looking down sad. Igris would sigh and pat her head. This would make her look up with joy and a smile, raising the sprites of the group of women that had been silent until now. They would then look around, trying to find Izuku, but he was nowhere in sight. "Where is Izuku?" Ruby asked. Still looking around, she noticed the two older women looking at each other. "Is everything okay? Please tell me he is okay." She would ask them about her worry about her friend and crush getting hurt. Glinda. "He is fine, but I believe we will need to talk about some things when he arrives." Sigh. "I assume you saw something that you weren't supposed to see yet." The group of women turned around to see a very bloody Izuku who was walking up with torn clothes. The woman's eyes widened in horror. Ruby and Yang rushed forward, and Jane and the others followed close behind. Igris walked up to Izuku and kneeled, still holding Eri staring at her father with worry. Ruby. "Oh my Izuku, are you okay?" she asked, inspecting him and making sure he was not bleeding. Izuku gently pushed her away so she wouldn't be covered in his blood. Izuku. "I am fine, you guys. I have healed up." Yang. "But still, you are covered in blood. How are you standing?" All Izuku could do under all these questions was scratch the back of his head. Izuku. "I will explain everything later, but I have a feeling there is a lot I need to explain." Olivia. "There most certainly is, especially how you turned Grim into those shadow creatures and controlled them." Everyone. "What?" Everyone but Glinda and Eri shouted in unison and looked back at the bloody man. Izuku. "As I said, I will later, but first, I would like to shower and change, and Ruby and Yang, could you call Summer and Tea? I feel like they deserve an explanation as well." They both nodded, pulled out their scrolls and massaged their mothers. Izuku then looked at the still kneeling Igris. "Thank you for protecting her, Igris. And could I trouble you to watch over Eri while I am busy?" Igris nodded and stood up, still holding on to Eri. "Well, let's get back so we can get this over with, and the rest of you are welcome to join. But you must keep it a secret." "Let's get back so we can get this over with." They all nodded at this statement and started to make their way back. Little did they know, however, that two individuals were watching them. One was tall and had deathly white skin and black eyes with red irises. She wore a black and red dress with her white hair tied behind her and a part hanging down to her waist. The other was a young woman with black hair and amber eyes with her hair covering one of them. She was wearing a crimson dress with yellow accents. "Cinder, I want you to find out all you can about that green-haired man. To drive creatures made from the fear of man into a panic has intrigued me greatly. He even managed to bring back several of my Grimm, and I am no longer in control of them. Interests me even more." Cinder. "It will be done, Mistress Salem, but what will you do in the meantime while I am working on this for you?" Salem. "There is another spot that interests me, like here several dozen Grimm have gone missing. But I still feel a connection to them, but it feels off somehow, like it has been corrupted by someone or something. Unlike with this man, where the connection was completely cut. I am going there myself hoping to figure out what is happening." Cinder would bow at this and wish her master luck on her trip. She would be lying if she said that this mission didn't interest her a bit as well. She found the green-haired boy interesting as well. But that would have to wait till later, when it came closer, for her to infiltrate the school and claim the rest of her power. Time skip brought to by Chibi Eri and Kaizel chasing a Chibi Nevermore. Izuku had just got out of the shower and changed into a new set of clothes. He walked out and met Glinda, who was looking at him. "Glinda. Please follow me. We will do this in Olivia's office. That is the safest place to talk." Izuku nodded and followed her silently with a downcast look on his face which worried Glinda. From the little interaction the two have had, he seemed like an overall kind person. Once they arrived at the office, everyone was staring at the Shadow Knight playing with Eri. Everyone looked at them as they walked in, and Eri ran up to Izuku. "Eri. Papa, are you okay now?" He would smile softly and kneel and pat her head. "Izuku. I am okay. Snowball, your papa is the strongest after all." This caused her to giggle and hug her father tightly. Everyone in the room had their hearts squeezed by how cute this moment was between them. "Weiss. I hate to ruin the moment, but I have been meaning to ask, is she your biological daughter?" Izuku. "No, I adopted her when I saved her." Blake. "Saved her from what I assume she is a faunus because she has a horn." Izuku. "She is not a faunus because that would imply she is from this world." This statement confused those that didn't already know. A black-haired woman with a pink stripe near the bangs and wearing a green dress spoke up and asked. "What do you mean not from this world?" Izuku. I am sorry, I don't know your name. Could I please have it? Oh, my apologies. My name is Lily Wren. And this person sitting next to me is Nora Valkyrie, Lily said, gesturing to the orange-haired lady wearing a pink skirt and white shirt. She looked like she could hardly keep her energy in check. Hiya, it's a pleasure to meet you, Izuku. As we were waiting on you, these four would not stop worrying about you. Nora pointed at the Rose and Xiaolong household, causing them to blush in embarrassment. This caused Izuku to laugh slightly in Nora's energy. Izuku. It is a pleasure to meet you both. My name is Izuku Sung, and this is my daughter Eri Sung. And as for your question, Ms. Ren, I believe we should start at the beginning of this whole mess. Izuku would then explain his life and Eri's to the group that didn't already know about it. Igris stood in the back, listening and silently angry, as having heard all this before, he was still angry about it. The women who knew of Izuku's past were still sad and angry that such a nice person had to endure so much. The ones that didn't listen on in horror to all this person sitting in front of them has gone through. Soon he finished up his story and looked at the faces looking back at him, some with tears in their eyes, and he just smiled to calm them down. Blake. How can you smile like that after all you have been through? Izuku. Because I once heard that even if the world were to turn against you, keep smiling. Because in the end, those smiling like an idiot when hell is all around them are the strongest. So I do that. Just keep smiling through hell or high water. The group just stared at the young man, still smiling at them. It calmed down some, but four people noticed something different. They looked into his eyes and saw pain. They wanted to bring it up but decided to do it later in a more private setting. They saw he was trying to calm down the others, so they decided not to say anything. Izuku. Well, I guess we should get to why we are here in the first place. He said, clearing his throat. Glinda. Yes, could you please explain what this is and who he is? She asked while pulling up a video of Izuku raising the grim and pointing at Igris. Izuku. Well, they are the same. They are shadows. Olivia. We can see that. We want to know how you were able to do this. Izuku. Sighs. Well, let's start by saying I am not human or no longer human. This statement caused a shocked silence to fall over the room. Yang. If you are not human, then what are you? Izuku. When my father gave me his powers, it changed what I am. I am now a part of an ancient race of monsters called a Monarch. I knew this would happen, but at the time, I didn't care and still don't really. The Monarchs are broken down into 9 different types. Summer. Then which one are you? They watched as Izuku stiffened and lowered his head in silence. Izuku. I am the Monarch of Shadows and the King of the Dead. I can call back the spirits of the dead and after a while learn to control shadows around me. Calling back the dead works better if they have mana flowing through them. But I learned how to do it without mana being in them or even if their mana is corrupted. Izuku, at this point, was still looking down and not making eye contact with anyone. I also can force my mana into others to increase the chances of my shadow extraction working. But I refuse to use that again unless absolutely necessary. Because if used on someone, it will cause extreme amounts of pain if they fight it. But if they don't fight it, they will experience an increase of power. Weiss. How do you know this? She asked so quietly that no one other than Blake and Izuku heard her. Jane. What did you say, Weiss? Weiss. I asked how does he know this? She asked louder, almost yelling, causing Eri to jump in Summer's arms. At this point, Izuku looked up, and the look in his eyes shocked them all. Weiss knew at this point she had messed up and was about to apologize, but before she could, Izuku interrupted her. Izuku. Because I used it on someone, he said emotionlessly with a dead look. The first person was the person who was experimenting on Eri. I wanted him to suffer and feel the same pain she went through, even if only for a little while before he died. Their eyes widened in horror at what he had just admitted. But all of them did agree with what he did, having heard what that man did to Eri. I know about the second one because my enemy used it to power up his army. I used it on a man named Rappa. He was part of the group but hated what they were doing but was too weak to stop it, so I spared him and asked him to join me. He agreed, and I used my mana to increase the power of his quirk and overall stats. That is a lot to take in. Glinda said, taking a deep breath. All Izuku would do is nod his head, having looked back down. Yes, it is. If you don't mind, I am going to step out for a bit, and Summer, would you mind watching Eri for the night? Izuku said, looking at Summer. Summer. Yes, I don't mind, but, thank you. I will be back in the morning, Izuku said, cutting her off. He looked at Igris. Please watch over her. Igris nodded, and Izuku quickly got up and left the room before anyone could say anything to him. Weiss. Why did he leave so quickly? We couldn't even say anything to him, she said, huffing at Izuku's rudeness. Eri, are you going to start being mean to Papa now like all the mean people before? She said with tears threatening to spill from her eyes. This question caused the gathered women to panic because they didn't want to make the small girl cry. Summer. No, sweetie, we won't hate your papa. Why would you think that? Before Eri could say anything, Igris would speak first. Igris. I will answer that for you because there are some things that even Eri doesn't know about. But I don't think it would be appropriate for her to hear about it yet, so can someone put headphones on her? Yang would pull out a pair of headphones she kept on her and give them to Eri. Eri would not be happy about this but would do as she was told and put them on. Before we go into why she said that, you should learn more about the man that is Izuku. Olivia. What do you mean? Igris. Well, you should first know how he met his father. You see, after his biological father left him on the roof of the building after crushing his dreams. Izuku would sit there for a while, not doing anything. My old master would watch over the boy because he heard what was said. As he watched, he would notice the boy start walking to the edge of the building. The gathered women's eyes would widen, not liking where this was going. Before my old master could move and stop him, he stepped over the railing and jumped off the building intending to kill himself. Why would he do that? Jane said, tearing up. Igris. You heard his story. The abuse and neglect were worse than he told you. There was a time he would get beat by his old friends and family just for fun. That is why he is so good at cooking. He has been cooking for himself since he was 4. Why would they do that? Lily asked, tears in her eyes, and sniffling. Igris. Because he wanted to be a hero and save others. They took it as him looking down on them because he was quirkless. So you're telling me they abused him simply because he wanted to save others and his family neglected him because he was quirkless? Weiss's rage was clearly heard in her voice. Igris. Yes, that is all correct, but back to the story I was telling. As he jumped, Master Jinwoo would command one of his shadows to catch and bring him over. During his fall, Master Izuku would pass out, so he sat and waited for him to wake up. After a while, he would wake up, and Master Jinwoo would start talking to him. Flashback. Jinwoo. Are you crazy? Why would you do that? Just because someone told you to give up on your dreams doesn't mean kill yourself. Exclamation mark quote, he would say, pacing back and forth in front of the boy. Speaking of the boy, he was watching him with a dead look in his eyes. Even when Jinwoo was a hunter, before the rulers reset the world so everything could be peaceful, he had never seen anyone with these dead-looking eyes. This worried the man because no child should look like this. The next thing broke the old monarch's heart because it hit too close to home. Izuku. Why would you bother saving a quirkless loser like me? I am a worthless Deku who cannot even kill himself correctly. Jinwoo would kneel and hug the boy tightly. The young boy's eyes widened. It had been years since he had been hugged like this. His eyes still looked dead, but he was crying his heart out, all the pain and grief. He cried it all out on this man who showed him kindness's shoulder. Jinwoo. Just because you lack something everyone else has, doesn't make you worthless or any less a person. We make our own self-worth. Never let anyone else decide yours. Izuku would only cry harder hearing this and soon cry himself to sleep in Jinwoo's arms. Jinwoo would pick up the boy and bring him to where he was staying to watch over him. Flashback end. Everyone in the room had a look of horror and tears streaming down their faces. Hearing that the kind man they had met tried to kill himself. The 4 that had lived with him for 2 months wanted to hug him and never let him go. The other wanted to do the same just to show that someone cared. Igris. After that, the old king would adopt Izuku and offer to train him and give him his powers. Izuku accepted this and began training with him. After training, the old king would pass on his powers to Izuku but would soon die of old age. Olivia. Why would he die of old age so soon after giving away his powers? Igris. It is because those that have the power of the Shadow Monarch are immortal and can only be killed by another monarch or ruler or some other godlike being. This shocked the group of women. Ruby. So you're telling us that Izuku is immortal? Igris. Yes, he is. Olivia. Why would he accept that, knowing that he would have to watch everyone he loves die while he stayed the same? Igris. It is because of the vow he made when his father died. Lily. What was the vow? Igris. That he would walk through oceans of blood and cloak himself in death to make sure the ones he loved would live a happy life. This shocked the group, knowing how far he would go just for someone else's happiness. But they still had a burning question that had yet to be answered by the Shadow Knight. Nora. But all that doesn't answer why the small one would ask us that, she said with a tilt of her head. Igris. Ah yes, as for why Eri said that, it's because after Izuku inherited the powers from the old king, he started to make friends. But during the fight to save Eri, the truth of his powers would be revealed by the Monarch of Destruction, Antares. This would cause the few friends Izuku made to turn their backs on him and for people to start calling him a monster. Or, in the worst case, they would try and kill him in the misguided attempt of stealing his powers. Then there is the fact that the two friends that stayed by him died. The group was horrified at what they were being told, and their hearts hurt hearing his story. Jane. So he thinks that we will turn our backs on him or worse, try and kill him to take his power? Igris. Yes, sadly, he has been hurt too often, so now he expects it to happen. The only person alive he trusts fully is Eri, because she knows what it's like to be treated like a monster. I fear that if it happens again, it will break him, and he will never trust anyone again. Summer. I think I speak for my family. We care for him too much to treat him differently. As far as I am concerned, he and Eri are part of our family already. This caused the other three to nod, and Summer to pat Eri's head. Jane. He saved me when he didn't have to and said he was my friend. He and Ruby are my first friends, she said with determination. Weiss. I don't know him that well, but I did enjoy his singing, and he seems like a great father to Eri. So it would be rather stupid of me to call him a monster if he has done nothing but help others. The rest of the group nodded, leaving only Olivia and Glinda to have yet to answer. I think I speak for both of us when I say we don't plan on treating Mr. Sung, any differently. He has shown nothing but kindness to us and has gone out of his way to protect others even if he didn't need to. Olivia said with a soft smile that did not go unnoticed by the others, causing some to give her a jealous look. Igris watched the gathered women, walked in front of them, and bowed deeply, shocking them. If you truly mean what you say, then I thank you from the bottom of my existence, Igris said, still bowing lowly. Please, there is no need to bow to us, Olivia said, getting up from her seat and putting her hand on the giant Shadow Knight, causing him to look up. You must care very much for him if you are willing to go this far just for his happiness, she said, smiling at the knight. Igris. Yes, all of us care for him deeply. He treats us like family, even the ones that were the enemy, he still treats kindly. Yang. All of you? How many of you are there? She asked with a tilt of her head. Igris. Once he gets his full power back and can use his whole army. Nora. I'm sorry, did you say army and full power? Just how strong is he? Igris. Yes, army. When he inherited the power, he gained his father's army, which was around 10 million, but as of right now, he can only use 30. But as his power comes back, it will increase. They were shocked at hearing that Izuku had such a massive army in his shadow, just waiting to be called on. Jane. What do you mean when Izuku's power comes back? Igris. I don't know why, but when he appeared in this world, his mana exploded out of his body. It would have felt like death was lurking over your shoulder. But slowly, over time, it will be absorbed back into his body, giving him his power back. Wait. That feeling 2 months ago was Izuku. When my family felt that, it set them on high alert. We thought someone broke in and was going to kill us, Weiss said, standing up with a look of shock on her face. Yes, that was him, although he did not mean for it to happen, Igris said, walking over to where Eri was and standing by her. I believe we should get Princess Eri to bed. It is quite late, and she is starting to nod off. The gathered women looked at Eri, who was nodding off as she continued to listen to the music that Yang was playing. Summer would take off the headphones, and Eri would look at her sleepily. Summer. Come on, sweetie, let's get you washed up and get you to bed. You have had a long day. Also, don't worry your little head about us treating your papa differently. We promise we won't. Eri would look at the other women in the room and yawn cutely, still struggling to stay awake. Eri. You promise? She asked, staring cutely at all of them. Everyone. Of course, we promise not to treat your papa wrongly as long as he remains himself. Eri would nod, accepting this, and look back at Summer. Summer, since papa is not here, can I please sleep with you tonight? Eri said this, giving Summer a cute look that caused an arrow to strike her heart. This also caused the other to get a bit jealous of Summer getting to sleep with the little angel. Absolutely, but let's get washed up first, Summer said, getting up and taking Eri to the baths, knowing where they were from her time at Beacon. As this was going on, let's look at what Izuku was doing as they were having this conversation. Back to when Izuku left. Izuku was walking around in a daze. He made his way back to the city, just walking around without a destination in mind. He just stared off into space, only giving enough attention to his surroundings to not run into people. His mind was caught in a loop, making him rewatch the past events of his life. He was hoping that after all he had said, they would still look at him the same, but he was worried they wouldn't. That is why he left Igris there in case they tried anything. He could protect Eri until he got back. As he was walking around, he heard through his thoughts the sound of something hitting something else coming from the alleyway. He also heard grunts of pain and soft yelling. Izuku went down the alleyway and looked at what was happening with disgust. 3 men were standing around another man on the floor curled up. The 3 are standing over the one on the ground and kicking him. What they said next caused Izuku's blood to boil in anger. Random asshole 1. Raw 1. Stupid freak. No one wants something as worthless as you here. Your kind should go back to where you came from or, better yet, die. He said, sending a kick to the prone man's stomach. At this point, Izuku noticed that the man had a pair of fox ears on top of his head. The group continued to hurl insults at the poor man as Izuku approached all of them from behind silently. Izuku. Oi, I think that's enough. I suggest you stop before things get ugly. The 3 turned around quickly, having not heard Izuku approach. The man on the ground looked up at his savior, but his face instantly fell, seeing it was another human. Raw 1. Why are you stopping us? We're just putting this freak in his place. What, are you some type of freak lover? He said, pointing at the prone man who still had his head down. Raw 2. Yay, are you a freak lover? He said, kicking the man. Izuku. Do that again, and I will hurt you, and I will only say this once more. Leave, or I will force you. This caused the man who kicked the man on the ground to puff up his chest and stand face to chest with Izuku, as Izuku was a full head taller than him. I am in a horrible mood, so don't push me, Izuku said, looking down at the smaller man. Raw 2. You won't do shit, freak love. He would get cut off by Izuku, who would slam his face into the wall, stunning him, breaking his nose, and cracking his skull from the impact. He didn't want to use too much force unless he accidentally killed him. The other 2, having seen what Izuku did, rush at him. The first went to the left, trying to get into Izuku's blind spot, while the other went to the right to do the same. Izuku kicked the one on the right in the knee as he approached. He dropped down to dodge a punch and brought his fist back into the other man's jaw. He returned to the first man and grabbed his head, slamming it into the third and knocking the 2 out. He looked back to find the man whose head he slammed into the wall was coming back to his senses. Izuku. You have 2 options: take your friends and leave, and if I ever see you doing something like that again, I will kill you. He had one of his shadow soldiers rise from behind him and scare him. Believe me, I will know if you do. Raw 2. What I is TT the S second OO option, he said, stuttering and almost shitting himself in fear. Izuku. Basically the same thing, but instead of you leaving, I break your legs and leave you unconscious in this alleyway, he said, his eyes glowing in the dark alleyway, causing more fear to well up in the man. The man didn't say another word and ran over, dragging his friends out and running for his life. Izuku orders 3 shadows to watch over them and ensure they don't do something like this again. Afterward, Izuku walked over to the man still on the ground and crouched down. Izuku. You okay? Sir? Also, you in the shadows, you can come out now. Izuku looked into the back of the alleyway and then looked over the man to see if he had any life-threatening injuries. As he was focused on the man, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching behind him. He wanted to look back but was too focused at the moment. Let's go somewhere else, sir. My old work is nearby. We can go there, and I can patch you up and get you something for the pain while there. That's fine. My name is Jason, by the way. Jason. Why did you help me? Most humans wouldn't bother getting involved when a faunus is involved. Yes, I was wondering that as well. Izuku and Jason looked back at who had just talked, and Jason let in a sharp intake of breath. Standing behind the two was a woman in a black jacket and pants. She had red hair that went down to her waist and black horns. The most interesting thing was she was wearing a mask that looked like a grim. Izuku. The answer to both your questions is easy. Even if he is different, he is still a living, thinking person. Just because you have an extra or different feature doesn't change that. Now can you stand up, Jason? He said, his attention returning to the man. Jason. Yay, I think so. He stood up with difficulty as he tried to walk forward. He tripped and was going to fall over until Izuku caught him, putting his arm around his shoulders to support him. Thanks, man. Izuku. No problem, always happy to help. Now let's get moving. The spot is just down the block. I can patch you up better there. And why should he trust you when you say this place is safe? She said, standing in front of him. Izuku. Because I don't care if he is a faunus, I just want to ensure he is okay. As for if this place is safe, the regulars are good people who are just down on their luck and need a shoulder to cry on most times. I built a good reputation with them, so they won't harm someone I bring in. Also, what is your name? I can't just call you woman if I need to say something to you. This seemed to appease her, and she stepped out of the way in motion for Izuku to continue. Then continue, but no, I will be paying close attention to your actions, and should you do anything, I will kill you. As for my name, it is Ada Taurus, she said, pointing at Izuku with her sword drawn. Izuku ignored this as he walked by her, not even looking at her. Hey, wait up, she said, speeding up to catch up to him. As they were walking, Izuku decided to check in on Eri. He looked through Igris's eyes and immediately stopped looking after he saw Summer in all her naked glory. He suddenly remembered his father's warning about using that ability and felt stupid. He was blushing fiercely and was thanking the darkness for hiding it. But he would be lying if he said he enjoyed the view but swore never to use that skill again unless in battle. Time skip. They arrived outside the Drunken Huntsman, and Izuku could see the woman was tense and on edge. Izuku, not caring, walked into the tavern, and as he walked in, he was greeted happily by the guest. They were happy to see the man whose cooking and music they grew to love. They noticed that he was carrying someone and noticed that there was someone behind him. Everyone in the establishment stiffened up, noticing that someone from the White Fang was with Izuku, but they trusted him enough. Izuku walked to an open table and helped Jason sit down under the careful eye of the woman. Izuku. Old man, we got another one. Get the kit. This confused the two faunus as to why he said another one. As they watched, a massive older man came out from the back carrying a box full of medical supplies. Cliff. What did you do this time, Izuku, and how many was it? Also, explain why you have someone from the White Fang here. He said, setting the supplies down. Izuku immediately got to work. Izuku. Wasn't that bad this time, only 3. They were jumping this guy, and I was in a bad mood. They should be glad they left with all their limbs. As for why she is here, she was stalking me to ensure I didn't do anything. Ada. I wasn't stalking you. And what does he mean this time? Cliff. Well, to put it simply, Izuku here has a problem with not fighting when he sees something he doesn't like. Also, what put you in a bad mood, Izuku? You were always happy, especially with the little one. Then some people that were sitting nearby called out. Random person 1 RP1. One time he broke several guys' legs that were harassing a faunus guy. RP2. Then there was the time when a faunus woman was getting shit from 2 other women, and he threw them out. RP3. Also, the time you helped out a family of faunus not only get a job here and taught them how to cook but also helped them get a house. Izuku was blushing from everyone exposing him, and the two Faunus was in shock hearing how much this person helped out. Izuku. Okay, that is enough, guys, and to answer your question, Cliff had to relieve some memories I would rather have forgotten. He said, finishing patching up the man and standing up. Mind if I borrow the kitchen for a bit to get these two some food? He asked, looking at Cliff. Cliff. As long as you make me some, I don't care what you do. He said, taking a seat next to Jason and signaling for the women to sit. Ada. And why should I take your food? She asked, not sitting down. Izuku. Take it or not. It's up to you. You came and made sure he was safe here, so as far as I am concerned, you can leave or sit down and enjoy some food. He said, walking into the back, not sparing another look back. Ada. What is his problem? She said, sitting down at the table. Cliff. Well, you were being rude for one, but even still, whatever memories were brought up today must have been bad. He is never like this. This caught Ada's attention. Ada. What is he usually like? Cliff. He is usually very kind even if the customer is drunk and angry. I can't tell you how often he has stopped a bar brawl or taken the time to talk to someone who was down and give advice that helped. There was once a time he brought in a member of the White Fang that had got jumped by a group of people who left him for dead. He picked up the guy and brought him back here. I will never forget when he arrived. Flashback. Izuku came running into the tavern carrying a man wearing a black and white outfit and a mask that looked like a grim. Cliff immediately recognized it and knew the man was a member of the White Fang. Cliff was thankful it was a slow day, and no one but the usual barflies was there. Cliff. Izuku, what are you doing with that person? They are a member of the White Fang. This got the attention of the barfly's attention, who immediately jumped up, ready to fight. Izuku. Sorry, boss, he was left for dead, and I couldn't just let him die. He said, putting the man on the floor and checking his wounds to see which ones were the worst. Cliff. Izuku, I understand you are a good person, but why are you helping that terrorist? All it will do is let him cause more pain and suffering if he gets better. He said, walking over to the kneeling man and looking over his shoulder. Izuku. I understand that is a possibility, and I am willing to take the risk. Cliff was starting to get annoyed by the young man and the fact he was not listening. Cliff. Why? He said, yelling, grabbing the young man's shoulder, and turning him slightly. Izuku. Because anger and hate only lead to more anger and hate. He said, looking back at the old hunter with determination in his eyes. Cliff watched as Izuku reached into the air and pulled out a red bottle. Thank goodness I had the forethought to make a few of these, otherwise, I would be screwed, Izuku said under his breath, almost to where Cliff could not hear it. Izuku lifted the man's head and poured the red liquid down his throat. His wounds slowly started to close. Cliff. What was that thing you gave him? He said, looking at the empty bottle. Izuku. It increases the rate at which a person heals, but the more severe, the slower it is. Seeing how slow it is going, he must have some bad internal injuries. He should wake up any moment. Cliff. Why would you waste something on a criminal? He said, taking a seat at a nearby table. They were still closely watched by all the other bar members. Izuku. I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and to be honest, I can't blame them for their actions, he said, taking a seat near Cliff. Cliff. What, do you have any idea how many people they have killed? He said, standing and slamming a hand on the table. Izuku. I know, but do you know how many humans have killed Faunus for no reason besides looking different? Or how many have been enslaved by humans? That is not an excuse for their action. Those who wait for freedom do not deserve it. But at the same time, those who use violence against innocents will never know freedom or peace. Izuku said this by looking at the man pretending to be still unconscious and listening to what was being said. Izuku. From my understanding, they tried to use peaceful actions at first and by doing so, they gained some people's support. Cliff nodded his head, remembering the peaceful protests that were shut down by force. But even with that, nobody gave them any attention to their cause. So it makes sense in a twisted way that if they tried a peaceful way first and no one paid attention, then violence was the next step. Cliff. What would you suggest then? Izuku would only shrug and shake his head. Izuku. The only thing you can do is treat them as if they aren't different like I do. I have shown you over the past month that everyone is similar to me. I have helped both humans and faunus the same, he said, waving his arms around the tavern. This caused everyone in there at the moment to nod their head in agreement because that is precisely what he did. Just because someone is different doesn't mean they're any less alive. The same as you and me. Izuku, at this point, heard the sound of soft crying. He looked over and saw the man on the floor with an arm covering his eyes as tears emerged from the mask. White Fang. All I wanted was someone to tell me that even though I am a faunus, I matter. Flashback end. After that, he would kneel and hug the crying man, and he would hug back tightly, still crying in Izuku's arms. As Cliff finished his story, he looked up at the two sitting in front of him, shocked hearing this story. Ada was deep in thought. After that, the man would take off his mask and bow in apology for all the harm he caused and wanted to make it up. As far as I know, he has hung up his uniform and is volunteering to help with relief from White Fang attacks on people. He is well respected by others, both humans and faunus, and stops by every once in a while to talk and give updates. Jason. That is amazing. I wish I could help like that, but I am too weak, he said, looking down at the ground. As he was lost in thought about his weakness, they were interrupted by someone talking behind them, catching their attention. Nothing's going to change. The three looked back to see Izuku standing with 3 plates. Jason. What? You cannot change the fact that those who are weak will forever remain weak, he said, putting the plates in front of the 3. Ada was about to say something, but Izuku continued before she could. Now, maybe it's just me, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, people are weak creatures by nature. Our insecurities are the reason that hunters even exist, Izuku said, motioning toward Cliff and around at some of the other patrons, then looked back at Jason, who sat silently. Izuku. And they're why we have friends. When we're surrounded by allies, it's easier to stay positive. He gave Jason and Ada a soft smile that made Ada's heart skip a beat. Think of it this way: if we're clumsy, then we may stumble and bump into things. But as long as we have faith in the future, we continue marching forward. Our inner strength emerges on its own, but, he said, raising a finger and catching the tavern's attention with what he would say next. Ada was delighted and wanted to hear more about what was being said. We must choose that path and pledge our lives to the fullest. Don't let that setback get in your way, and don't let it cloud your heart and make it dark. Now eat up before it gets cold. He motioned toward the food. Both looked towards the food, and grabbed the silverware. They took a big bite and immediately fell in love with it. Soon they were scarfing it down, which caused the rest to laugh, knowing how good Izuku's food was. Izuku. You know, for someone who didn't want to eat, you sure are scarfing it down, he said, giving her a triumphant smirk. This caused her to blush, but she continued to eat. Cliff. Well, while these two stuff their faces, how was the test today to get into Beacon? At this, Izuku's face fell and worried Cliff. Izuku. Well, I didn't die, so that is a plus, but I could not find a partner and get an artifact. So I don't know what they are going to do. Hopefully, it all works out, but I don't know. You'll be fine, kid. You are one of the strongest people I know, so there is no need to worry. And earlier, you said you were in a bad mood. What was that about? Cliff asked, raising a bushy eyebrow. Izuku would scratch his head, not wanting to relive that again. Izuku. Let's just say that I had to relive some past things that I would have rather forgotten. Cliff nodded, not wanting to pry more into this, seeing how much it bothered the young man. So he just put a big hand on the other man's shoulder. This also caught Ada's attention. She wanted to know what could have been so bad that he would want to forget all about it. Cliff. It's okay, kid. You don't have to talk about it until you want. Just know that all of us here care for you. Remember that. Izuku, hearing that, would smile at the big man. Ada, seeing him smile like that, would feel her heart squeeze again and wish he was smiling at her like that. She brought her hand up to her left eye, where she was branded by the Schnee Dust Company with her brother. Izuku noticed this and would stand up and walk over to Ada. Izuku. Would you please come with me for a second, Ms. Taurus? I need to talk to you. Ada nodded and got up, and followed Izuku. Old man, I am stealing the kitchen for a second. Don't let anyone in till I am done, please. Cliff. Sure, just don't do anything I wouldn't. Izuku. That is a very short list, old man, and we both know it, he said, ducking into the kitchen with Ada as Cliff chucked something at him to the laughter of the others. Ada. So what do you need that you would drag me in here? She said, looking at Izuku. Izuku. Now, this may be rude, but can you remove your mask? I want to check something. Ada stepped back and got into a defensive position, grabbing her sword. Ada. You have exactly one chance to tell me why I should do that. Otherwise, it will get messy in here real quick. Izuku put up his hands to show he meant no harm. Izuku. Because I saw you hold your hand up to your eye. I figured something might be wrong with it and that I might be able to help if it was. Hearing his reason gave Ada a sense of hope. But she didn't want to believe him, thinking he would try and trick her like everyone else but her brother. All I want is to help. Ada. If you want to help, why'd I need to take off my mask? Izuku. I need to see if it's something I can help with. Ada. Fine, but if you do anything else, your life is forfeit, got it? She slowly moved her hands from her sword and brought them to her mask. She slowly removed it. After it was off, she looked away in shame, closing her eyes, not wanting the young man to see. She felt gentle hands touch the sides of her face and gently move her head to look forward. She opened her eyes and looked forward, and saw Izuku smiling gently at her. She felt his fingers gently running over the scar. He did not look disgusted or try to avoid looking at it. He looked deeply into her eyes. She felt her cheeks darken under his gaze, but no matter what, she could not look away from his emerald eyes that had flecks of purple. She thought they were such lovely eyes, but as she looked deeper, she could see the pain behind them. She wanted to know more about that. Izuku. It seems like it will work. As he talked, it snapped Ada out of her thoughts. He said, stepping back and letting go of her face. Ada. What do you mean it will work? What will work? She asked while hiding her sadness from him, no longer touching her. She enjoyed it a lot. He was gentle, and his hands were rough and warm. She felt safe in those hands. Something she had not felt for a long time since before she was put into that mining camp with her brother. Izuku. Well, I have something that will get rid of the scar and heal your partially blind eye. But fair warning, it's going to taste like ass. Her eyes widened hearing this, and she started to tear up. She didn't want to believe what he was saying. Ada. What do you mean you can heal me? You better not be lying, or else I will kill you. I swear, she said, drawing her sword, pointing it at Izuku's neck, and drawing blood with the point. Izuku put his hands up and gave her a serious look. Izuku. I would never lie about something like this, he said, pulling out a bottle from nowhere and never taking his eyes off hers. Drink this, and it will heal you. I made it for myself to get rid of my own scars but never drank it. If you don't believe me, I will try it first to prove it. She motioned for him to do so, and he did without hesitation. He took a sip and grimaced at the taste, still not liking it. They stood there for a minute, Ada watching him closely for any signs, and after 4 minutes of silence, staring at each other with nothing happening. Ada reached out her hand. Izuku handed over the bottle, and she downed the rest. The fact that it was an indirect kiss didn't slip her mind, causing her to blush slightly. As she thought this, she felt a slight burning feeling around her eye. Izuku. I knew you were beautiful before, but now you look perfect, he said, handing her a mirror. Before she looked in the mirror, she looked at him with confusion but with a blush from the compliment. Ada. What do you mean? How could I be beautiful with that hideous scar? She asked, getting angry, thinking he was making fun of her. Izuku. I find that if you wear a mask long enough, you forget the beauty underneath. Plus, I didn't mind the scar. It shows that you are a survivor, you have been through the worst, and came out alive, he said, smiling at her, easing her anger. She looked at the mirror and almost cried at what she saw. The scar that has been with her most of her life, the scar that marked her as nothing but property, was gone as if it had never been there. Tears streamed down her face, and she ran over and hugged Izuku tightly. Ada. Thank you, she repeated over and over. Izuku hugged her back, rubbing her back. They stood there for a while, not saying anything. When she let go, she didn't want to, and that thought caused her to blush. WWLIIS should go. I can't be gone long, and they are probably looking for me, she said, putting back on her mask to hide her blush, although it didn't cover it that well. As she was about to walk to the back door, she quickly turned around and kissed Izuku on his cheek, shocking and causing him to blush. That is a thank you for helping me. She quickly left through the back door, leaving Izuku in the kitchen holding his cheek. Outside, after running out the door, Ada leaned against a nearby wall. She was blushing fiercely, and her heart was beating faster than ever. She was breathing heavily, and as she calmed down, she started to smile creepily, and under the mask, you would swear hearts were in her eyes. She touched her lips and smiled more. Ada. Oh, Izu, what are you doing to me? She would get off the wall and start returning to the hideout. She walked with a pep in her step and a smile still on her face. Back inside. Well, that was shocking, but it felt nice, Izuku said, smiling softly, still holding his cheek. He walked back out to the front and back over to Cliff. He sat down next to the big man who was talking to Jason. Cliff. Where did she go off to? He asked, looking around, trying to spot Ada. Izuku. She left through the back door after our talk. Jason. Talk? From out here, it sounded like a whole lot of yelling. What did you even talk about in the first place? Izuku. Sorry, not my place to tell. You would have to ask her yourself. Jason. Yeah, no. You know she is the right hand to the current leader and his twin sister. Cliff's face went pale, and he started to get nervous. Izuku. It will be fine. She seems like a good person. She was just led down the wrong path in life and needed someone to help her find the right one. Both men looked at the younger one in shock, not believing what he had just said. Both looked at each other and shrugged. They figured that if anyone could do it, it would be Izuku. So they left it at that and went back to talking. Hey, old man, do you mind if I borrow the back room for the night until I head back tomorrow? Izuku asked, standing up and stretching. Cliff. It's all yours for the night. Just clean up before you leave. Izuku nodded and went to the back room to sleep the night away, hoping that tomorrow would be better and they would still talk to him. We start the following morning with Izuku waking up early. He got up and stretched and walked out front. No one was in the bar, even Cliff, who lived upstairs above the tavern. Izuku quietly walked out the front door and locked up as he left. The morning was chilly but woke Izuku up and made him alert. He slowly walked toward Beacon. As he looked around, there were very few shops open. Most were bakeries just starting their day and making fresh goods. Izuku decided to stop and get something for everyone to apologize for leaving so abruptly yesterday and as a celebration for passing the test. After waiting for them to finish, he started going back toward Beacon. Time skip. As he approached the front gate of Beacon, he was surprised to see Olivia standing out front. She had a cup of something hot in her hands to drive away the morning chill. When she noticed him, her face lit up, and she started walking toward him with a smile. At first, Izuku was tense seeing her walking toward him, but when he saw her smile, he relaxed slightly, smiling at her back. Hello, Izuku. I hope you had a good night, Olivia said, stopping in front of him and looking into his eyes. Izuku. Hello, Olivia. It was okay. I went to my old workplace and talked to an old friend. I also must apologize for leaving so abruptly yesterday. I just had a lot on my mind afterward. It is more than okay, Izuku. We completely understand and appreciate you trusting us enough to tell us your secret. Olivia said, smiling up at Izuku. Izuku. Thank you, Olivia. Could you please point me in the direction of where Eri is sleeping and where the kitchen is? I am sure she was unhappy with me leaving without telling her yesterday. So I figured I would make her favorite breakfast as an apology. I also grabbed some pastries from a local bakery. You can invite the others there and join yourself if you would like. This caught Olivia's attention. She had heard about his cooking and had tuned into the live streams showing his music and enjoyed them all. Olivia. Well, I won't turn that down. I have heard all about your food from a friend. Follow me. I will take you where you can cook and gather the others for you. Izuku nodded and followed behind the white-haired woman. As they arrived at the cafeteria, she left Izuku there to go and grab the others. Izuku got to work making pancakes for everyone. He had some of his shadow soldiers helping him. As he was working, he heard footsteps approaching. He did not recognize them and quickly unsummoned his soldiers and turned around to see who it was. As he did so, two people walked into the kitchen. One was a portly older man with white hair and a white mustache. The other was a woman whose hair was a slightly darker green than Izuku's own. The two were in a heated argument, with the older man struggling to keep up with the woman, who seemed to be floating with how fast she was going. They both stopped and stared at the young man standing in the kitchen. The woman was the first to speak. "Who are you, and how did you get in here?" she asked, zooming over to stand in front of Izuku, looking down at him as she was slightly taller than him. She adjusted her glasses and stared at Izuku, waiting for an answer. "Calm down, Betty. I am sure there is a reasonable explanation. Care to explain, young man?" he asked with a kind smile towards the young man. "Of course, ma'am and sir. I was making breakfast for Ms. Ozpin and a group of others. If you would like to join, I would be happy to make some for you," Izuku said, turning back towards the food to continue finishing up. "If not, I have made some coffee over there. Take some if you would like." He gestured over to a freshly brewed pot of coffee. This caught Betty's attention immediately, and she zoomed over with a cup in her hand, seemingly appearing out of nowhere. As soon as she took a sip, her eyes widened. She then chugged the rest of the cup and filled a second one. "Calm down, Betty, it's not going anywhere," the older man said, going over and grabbing a cup and filling it up, only to take a sip and do the same as Betty. "Oh my, this is the best coffee I have ever had, and you said you made this?" He looked back at the man, still focusing on the food. "Izuku. Yes, sir, I did. I would be more than happy to join you to eat. Right, Betty?" She nodded her head rapidly, still drinking down the coffee. "I think you might need to make another pot or two. If she keeps this up, you might run out. By the way, my name is Peter Port. I teach Grimm Studies, and the one who is drinking down your coffee like water is Ms. Bethany Oobleck. She is the one who teaches history here at Beacon." "Betty. That is Dr. Bethany Oobleck," she said, stopping long enough to correct the older man and then going back to drinking the coffee. "Izuku. It is a pleasure to meet you too. My name is Izuku Sung." "Ah, so you're the Mr. Sung Olivia has been talking about. It is a pleasure to have a face to a name, and I think both of us will take you up on your offer." "Thank you," Port said with Betty nodding, still downing the coffee. "Then take a seat. It will be done soon. The others should be here any minute." As Izuku said that, everyone started to arrive, all looking half asleep. Eri was in Summer's arms and, just like the others, barely awake. "Yang. There better be a good reason for me to be awake at this ungodly hour, or someone is getting punched." "Nora. I agree," she said, stumbling only to be caught by Lily and nodding off slightly. Izuku. "Well, I don't know if it's a good reason, but I made breakfast for everyone." This woke the group up instantly. They turned to see Izuku standing in the doorway to the kitchen with two others standing behind him. "Izuku!" Ruby exclaimed and, using her semblance, rushed towards Izuku, slamming into him, followed closely by Yang, causing him to fall back. He landed on the ground with the two on top of him. I'm so glad you are awake. Where have you been all night? We were so worried about you." Both were talking so fast that Izuku could barely understand them. But he got what they were saying and smiled, knowing they were worried about him. He pets both of them on the head to calm them down. This caused them to blush, but they calmed down. As this went on, they heard someone clear their throat in front of them. "Summer. Ahem, are you girls gonna stay on top of him all day or what?" This caused the two to notice their position and quickly got up, blushing madly. Izuku was about to get up but was tackled again by a tiny snowball that was crying. All Izuku did was wrap his arms around her and hug her tightly. "Izuku. Sorry, Snowball, for leaving without saying anything to you." "Eri. It's okay, Papa. I was just worried that you would leave me." Izuku. "Oh, Snowball, I will never leave you. Even when you're an old lady, I will still be there to protect you." "Eri. You promise?" she asked, hugging tighter. Izuku. "Of course, forever and always," he said, kissing her forehead and causing her to smile brightly. "Now I made pancakes, so if you don't want them to be cold, I suggest you all get to the table," he said. The group that knew about his cooking seemed to teleport to the table, ready to eat. Everyone else looked on with shock at how quickly they moved and followed suit. As they did that, Izuku got up, put Eri on his shoulders, and went inside the kitchen. After a minute, he walked out with a cart loaded with pancakes and everything needed for them. As soon as he walked out the door, they were hit with the smell of freshly made pancakes. Their mouths started to water. Izuku placed a stack in front of everybody and placed the coffee in the center for anyone, hot chocolate in front of Ruby, and one for Eri. Izuku. Well, dig in. I hope you enjoy it. And if anyone else would like some hot chocolate, there is still more. He sat down with Eri on his lap and fed her. As everyone took a bite of the food, they let out a collective moan embarrassing them, but it didn't stop them from eating. Izuku just let out a soft chuckle at this while still feeding Eri. After the outburst, they sat silently enjoying the food until Izuku spoke up. So, Olivia, when will the teams be announced? At Izuku's question, she swallowed the food in her mouth and answered. Olivia. They will be announced this morning after breakfast, and the students will be allowed some time afterward to set up their rooms and then make their way to the afternoon classes. Izuku. That's nice, but what about me? I was unable to find a teammate or return with an artifact. So does that mean I won't be able to join Beacon? The Roses and Xiaolongs were about to stand in protest, followed by the rest but were stopped by Olivia laughing. Olivia. No, that would be insane not to allow someone of your skills to not join in some capacity simply because you refused to find a teammate. Ruby. Wait, refused. Olivia. Ms. Rose, do you honestly believe that knowing someone of Izuku's skills and abilities he wouldn't easily be able to both find someone and get an artifact? Well, no, Ruby said, looking confused now that she was thinking about it. Exactly. It was quite obvious that he was avoiding anyone who had not already had a partner. As Olivia said this, everyone looked over at Izuku, who was avoiding eye contact with everyone at the moment. Why would you purposely avoid others? Yang asked, and Izuku looked at her with a look that screamed, really? Yang. Never mind, I remember. Izuku looked away from her and looked back at Olivia. Izuku. So in what capacity will I be then? Olivia. Simple. You will be a teacher's assistant to both Mr. Port and Ms. Goodwitch. Peter and Betty stood up, protesting at her announcement. Meanwhile, Glinda was happy to spend more time with Izuku. What qualifications does this boy have that would allow you to make him an assistant teacher? And does he even know the first thing about how a Grim operates? Port was protesting loudly, causing Eri to cover her ears and start to tear up. Seeing this, he let out a small amount of bloodlust, causing everyone at the table to fall silent and look over at him. While I understand you questioning my qualifications, I ask that you keep your voice down. My daughter has problems with loud noises. As for my qualifications, look at this. It should answer some of your questions about why she asked me to help you. Izuku pulled a notebook out of his inventory and tossed it in front of Port. After that, he stopped the bloodlust and started calming Eri. The gathered women and Port was shocked about how he could go from scary to caring so quickly. Port reached for the notebook and opened it with Betty looking over his shoulder, curious about what could change Port's mind. As they looked through the book, they were shocked about what they were reading. There was information about the Grimm that they had not figured out and theories they had never thought about. Even though it was among the more common ones encountered, it was still shocking. They looked back over at the man who was claiming down the small girl on his lap. Port. Where did you get this? Izuku. I made it myself. I have always been extremely good at analysis. If you look further, there are even some notes on Ruby and Yang since I have seen them in combat the most. The two mentioned blushed to know that Izuku was watching them closely. Port. Even still, how would you find this out? It shows passive traits, and no one has been able to observe a Grimm for this long without being spotted. Izuku. That is easy. I will show you. He handed Eri over to Yang, sitting next to him, and stood up. Once he was standing, he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. They all looked around, trying to spot him but to no avail. Port suddenly felt something press against his neck, and Izuku appeared right behind him with a dagger to his neck and eyes slightly glowing. This is how I can erase everything about me. Sight, smell, and even noise, but I must be careful with my bloodlust. Otherwise, it can leak out, he said, drawing the dagger back and walking back to his seat. He went to grab Eri, but Yang refused to give her up and hugged her tighter. Izuku just sighed and sat down. Some of the women were thinking about how hot that was. Port. Well, with that, I don't see a problem with you helping. I might even tell you some of my stories. They would most definitely help you with your notes. The group of teachers there had sweat drop hearing that, knowing how their college tends to exaggerate when telling his stories. But Izuku, not knowing better, replied to him. I would love to hear them if given time. Izuku smiled at the older man. Izuku noticed everyone was done, so he picked up all the plates and went and washed them, leaving the group alone. Summer decided to join him in cleaning up along with tea. Others decided to leave or stay and talk for a bit. The three enjoyed each other's company as they cleaned and caught up on everything. All was fun till Izuku heard a gasp coming from outside. The three walked out quickly and saw Glinda looking at her scroll. Izuku. What's going on? Glinda. It was just on the news that 3 guys were attacked last night by someone with green hair while walking through an alley. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you, Izuku? While most of the women caught that she called him Izuku instead of Mr. Sung, they didn't say anything at the moment. Izuku, for his credit, didn't deny it. Izuku. Yeah, about that. I was the one who did that. Glinda. What could cause you to attack someone? It says that one had one of his leg broken at the knee. Another fractured his skull and a broken nose, and the last had a broken jaw. Not to mention that all 3 had a concussion. What could have caused you to do something like that? She asked worriedly, but not believing Izuku would have done that without reason. Izuku. Figures those guys wouldn't tell the whole story and just the parts that make them look like the victim, Izuku stated angrily. He then explained the whole situation the night before after he left. He left out the part about meeting the second in command of the White Fang, not wanting to make the situation worse. Olivia. So you are telling us that you beat up 3 men because they are beating a defenseless Faunus. You tried a nonviolent approach even when you were in a bad mood having to relive your past, but they still proceeded to attack you, so you defended yourself and then helped said Faunus. Am I getting that correct? Yep, that is correct, and I would do it again without a second thought, Izuku said with conviction evident in his eyes. Blake. Why? I understand you are not from here, but why would you put yourself into a situation that did not concern you? This question caught Betty's and Port's attention, and they wondered where he was from. Both thought to ask Olivia later. Izuku. Because I hate racism. You all know my story. I was beaten down and told I was less because I didn't have something everyone else had, which made me different. So I can't stand seeing the same thing happen to someone else. Blake's eyes widened at what he said, and she smiled softly, but no one noticed as they were focused on Izuku. Well, I think we should all get ready for the ceremony as it should be happening within the next few hours. Am I right, Olivia? Yes, we should. Thank you for reminding me, Olivia said, getting up with the other teachers and moving towards the door. Thank you again for the food, Izuku. It was delicious, as I have heard, and I look forward to trying it again. I am glad to hear that, Olivia, and if you ever want it again, just ask. Izuku gave her a smile that lit the room, causing her to blush, and she quickly walked out with the rest of the teachers under the jealous looks of the other women gathered there. Izuku decided to get up as well, picking up Eri much to Yang's protest, and started to walk to the door. Ruby. Izuku, where are you going? Izuku. I am going to train with Igris. We have a bit until everyone wakes up, so I thought I'd get some early morning exercise in. You can join if you want. At this, Ruby and Yang jumped up and ran to get changed into training gear. The others, curious about their reaction, decided to join to see what the fuss was about. Ruby's POV. When Izuku asked if I wanted to train, I was so happy. Since he has been here, he has helped me with getting stronger. He even helped me improve my side handling while sticking to what Auntie Quill taught me. The best part was that he helped me incorporate my semblance into my fighting more smoothly. I quickly changed and made my way over to where Izuku was. As I arrived, Yang beat me there and was sparring with Izuku. Blake, Jane, Pyrrha, Lily, Nora, my mom, and my auntie sat on the ground, watching the sparring session. Eri was sitting on Nora's lap, watching her father fight. She seemed to be enjoying it. Yang's POV. I quickly changed into my training outfit in hopes of getting there first. During the 2 months he had lived with us, he would help with our training whenever he had off. It was always fun fighting him, although it always felt like he was holding back. But I never questioned it, knowing about his life, so I guessed he had more combat experience. Although each training I had with him, I always learned something new and helpful. When I arrived, I saw Izuku sparring with Igris. Both were going so fast that I could barely see them. I watched in awe and got even more excited to train. I walked over to the group sitting on the ground, watching. Yang. How long have they been at this? Jane. Since we all arrived, Igris suddenly attacked him, shocking us, but Izuku quickly countered him, and here we are now watching this intense fight. As we continued to watch, we noticed Igris getting the upper hand on Izuku. He tried to counter the fast jabs of the Black Knight but was quickly overwhelmed and punched into a tree. I ran over to help him and put him in a sitting position. I thought he would be groaning in pain, but instead, he was laughing, which confused me and everyone else. Izuku. I haven't had that much fun in a fight in a long time. Thank you, Igris, for indulging this selfish request. He smiled at the knight, who only bowed his head in gratitude for the kind words from his king. Yang. I want to spar with you now, Izuku. I said, pulling him to his feet. When he looked over at me, his cheeks darkened. Izuku. What's with the new training outfit? He asked me, looking away from me. I smirked, seeing a chance to tease him and get him back for always teasing me. Yang. What, doesn't it look good on me? I thought you would like it. Don't you like it? I think it makes me look good. I asked, hugging his arm and smirking at him, causing him to blush deeper. I felt a jealous aura behind me and turned around to see Jane pouting. I stuck my tongue out at her in a playful manner, causing her pout to deepen. Izuku. Well, let's get to sparring. Why don't we? He said quickly, changing the subject and moving away. I smirked, moved in front of him, and got into a fighting stance. He stood before me, got into a fighting stance, and started fighting. No one POV. Izuku. Keep focused, Yang. Always look toward your next move, he said, punching her in the stomach and sending her back a few steps. Yang used her semblance to try and send a strong punch back, but Izuku dodged to the left, grabbing her arm, flipping her over, and pinning her down, causing her to blush madly. Izuku. Yang, your semblance is perfect for close combat, but you rely too much on it. You need to learn when to use it for the maximum effect or use it as a bluff to push your opponent to a position advantageous for you. Yang sat on the ground listening to what Izuku was saying. She had her head down, thinking she was disappointing Izuku. Izuku walked over and started to pat her head, causing her to blush and smile. Izuku. I honestly wish that Greed was here. He is one of the best hand-to-hand fighters. Before you start pouting, Igris, you are my best swordsman. I am sure that if you and Bellion were put on equal ground, you would win in swordsmanship. Igris bowed in gratitude and had a smug aura coming off him. Ruby. Izuku, she said. Using her semblance, she tackled Izuku from behind into a hug. That was so awesome. I always love watching your fights, she said, hugging Izuku tighter, causing him to blush. He turned around and looked at the petite red-haired woman. What he saw made him blush deeper and look away. Izuku. RWBY, what are you wearing? Ruby. What don't you like it? Yang helped me pick it out and said that you would like it. Was she wrong? She asked, looking down sad, thinking he did not like it. Izuku, not wanting to hurt her feelings, walked over and petted her head. She looked up at the taller man blushing at how close he was. Izuku. Don't worry, Ruby, I like it. It just surprised me, is all. I think you look wonderful. So what would you like to train with? He said, trying to get back to why they were there, ignoring the jealous aura coming from behind him. I would suggest hand-to-hand so that if you were ever disarmed or trapped in an area, you couldn't use crescent rows. You have something to fall back on. Not seeing a problem with his logic, Ruby was not used to fighting without crescent rose. Izuku had to stop multiple times during the spar to readjust her stance. This caused her face to heat up, having him close to her and touching her. By the end of the training, RWBY was about to pass out from embarrassment while the others were jealous watching the two. Izuku. Good job, RWBY. You have improved a lot, but I think we should get changed. They will announce teams soon, and I don't think you want to be sweaty when they do. He said, wiping his head with the bottom of his shirt and giving the women in front of him a look at his abs, causing them to blush heavily. Jane, would you mind looking after Eri while I am getting cleaned? Jane. Heavy blush ss sure I don't mind IIL like s spending tea time with her. She said, hugging Eri tightly, causing her to giggle. The others gathered looked at Jane with jealousy because Izuku asked her to watch over the little angel and not them. Izuku. Thank you, Jane. I will be back as quickly as possible. Eri. Be good, okay. Eri. Okay, Papa, I won't cause big sis Jane any trouble. Jane felt an arrow pierce her heart, hearing Eri call her big sis while the others, minus RWBY, Young, and their mothers, were jealous that they were not called big sis. Izuku. Good girl, he said, patting her head, causing her to smile brightly at him. He walked away, leaving the gathered women to go and find a shower to prepare for the ceremony. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Eri having her hair look like Salem's, causing Olivia to have PTSD looking at it. After showering and changing, he made his way to the Great Hall. He had arrived later than he had intended, having gotten lost slightly. All the teams were already announced, and Olivia was about to make her final announcement. Olivia. For the final announcement, we would like to introduce our new assistant teacher, both Combat and Grim Studies. We watched as he took the time provided for the exam to study the Grim he encountered and took notes on them. That impressed even our current Grim Studies teacher, Mr. Port. Hearing his name, the older mustached gentleman stood up and nodded his agreement to the statement. He has also shown combat knowledge beyond his years when going up against a small army of Grim, giving the people around him time to escape. A screen pops up and shows Izuku fighting the army of Grim. It was edited to not show his shadows, much to his gratitude. Olivia. Now, without further stalling, will Izuku-sung please come forward and introduce yourself? A light showed on Izuku, standing in the back. He was not expecting to have to give a speech and swore to get back at Olivia for not telling him beforehand. He smiled sweetly at her and made his way to the front under the eyes of everyone present. I will get you back for not telling me about a speech I would have to give, Izuku said, leaning down and whispering it into her ear, causing her to blush. He then went to stand next to the mic and looked out over the crowd of students. Some showed interest, wondering what would cause this school to allow a teacher assistant the same age as them. At the same time, others were jealous that he was stealing all the attention and did not deserve the position he was given. Izuku. I was not told I would be giving this speech, and, to be honest, I suck at them. Some of the audience chuckled at this. I know some of you sitting out there are wondering why someone your age is a teacher's assistant. Some of the audience nodded in agreement. That reason is I have spent a quarter of my life fighting in life and death situations. In that video, Ms. Ozpin showed you are not uncommon for me to face. I have fought more significant numbers than that and came out victorious. So I say this: don't look at my age when judging me. Look at my experience and take what I am willing to give to you, so that one day when you are in a similar situation, you know what to do and come out of it alive. Izuku would step away from the mic and slightly bow toward the gathered students. There was a long silence until the students started to clap, even those who were angry, before begrudgingly joining in. Izuku stood straight and let out a blinding smile toward the students, causing every woman there to blush and some guys to question their sexuality. Olivia. Blushing. Thank you, Mr. Sung, for the speech, and I think I speak for the staff when saying we are glad to have you on board and sharing your knowledge and experience. Now, without further delay, I welcome you all to Beacon. You will have the next few hours to set up your rooms, and after that, you will attend your evening class. I hope you all have a wonderful stay here at Beacon and learn all you can. After her speech, she would step away from the mic and walk away. The student would follow suit and start towards their rooms. Izuku made his way over to RWBY and her group, who were standing next to Jane and her group. Eri saw Izuku walking over and ran over to him. Eri. Papa. She ran to her father, who crouched to pick her up and hug her. She brightly smiled at her father, only hugged her tighter. Izuku looked over at RWBY and the others. Izuku. Jane, thanks for watching her, and sorry it took so long to get here. This place is massive, and I got lost. Jane. It's okay, Izuku. I don't mind watching her, although it was a little embarrassing having her up there with me when they announced the groups. Not in a bad way, just weird having a kid in your arms as you were being told your group. This caused Izuku to chuckle slightly. Izuku. Chuckling, yeah, I imagine, so you probably looked like a mother holding her daughter. This caused Jane's face to go nuclear, and steam seemed to come from her head. The others looked on in shock at what he had just said. Izuku, realizing what he had just said, started blushing as well. Izuku, not knowing how to handle this situation, used the only options available at the moment. Izuku. Blushing heavily, well, Eri, let's go find Olivia and see where we will be sleeping. He quickly turned around, with Eri looking behind, waving as they both quickly walked away. He was leaving behind a blushing Jane and a jealous and pouting Ruby and Yang. Yang. Jealous, wow, would you look at that, getting called a mother to such an adorable little snow angel. While in her mind, I want to be the snowball's mother. Ruby. Jealous, oh, to be so lucky. Mind, why couldn't he have said that to me, I want to be Snow Angel's mother? While both were staring at Jane with jealousy, the rest were slightly jealous over the fact of being called the Snow Angel's mother. We go to Izuku, who was making his way to where Olivia and Glinda were standing. Before they arrived, however, Eri looked at Izuku and asked a question on her mind. Eri. As big sis Jane my mama now? Izuku would lose his footing and stumble slightly at the sudden question. Izuku. No Eri Jane is not your mama. He said, blushing deeply. Eri. Oh, so does that mean I will never have a mama? She said, looking down sadly. Izuku. Don't be sad, Eri. You will have a mama one day, but for that to happen, I would have to be in a relationship with someone first. Once that happens, you will hopefully get a mama if they are okay with it. But given how cute you are, they would have to be crazy not to want to be your mama. He said, kissing her forehead and cheeks, causing her to giggle. The people around them had hearts melted at such a sweet sight between the two. As this happened, they finally arrived, where Olivia was standing with Glinda talking to Summer and T. Izuku. Hello, you all. Summer. Hello Izuku. What has got you two in such a good mood? Eri. Papa was talking to me about getting a mama. This caught the attention of the gathered women. While Izuku's face went redder than Summer's hair. Summer. What caused this conversation to come up? Before Eri could speak up, Izuku cut in. Izuku. It's something Eri has always wanted, but because I have never had time for any relationship, she never had one. But I needed to ask Olivia a question. The four women had hoped they could be the Snow Angel's mama. So hearing she never had one both gave them hope of being one for her, but, at the same time, broke their heart because she never had one. Olivia. Oh, what can I help you with? Izuku. Well, I was wondering where my room would be located. Glinda. Ah yes, I was just about to come looking for you to tell you. Usually, you would be put in the teacher's wing, but there is no room suitable for you and Eri. So we have decided to put you in the student wing between Team RWBY and JNPR since you know both of them. Izuku. Okay, thank you. I will be going now to set up my room. Olivia. That is fine. You will be with Mr. Port for the evening class. Afterward, you will follow the class to Ms. Goodwich's class. Summer. I would ask if you would like help setting up the room, but T and I need to get going. Ozpin here gave us a mission. Please watch over our daughters while we are gone. Izuku. I would have been grateful for the help, but I understand. Don't worry. They are safe as long as I am here. Be safe out there, you too. If you need any help, I put a soldier in your shadows. They can help you in need be. T. You gave us one of your soldiers. Why, Izuku. I have a soldier in the shadows of everyone I care about. He said, smiling at them, causing Summer and T to blush. Olivia and Glinda wondered if they had one in there but were too embarrassed to ask him. Summer. Well TT then T thank YYUV very much. She said, blushing heavily and turning away while T avoided looking at him, trying to hide her blush from Izuku but nodded her head in thanks. Izuku. Well, I will talk to you all later, he said, turning around and leaving with Eri looking back and waving to the group. Izuku made his way to his room and saw that it had 2 beds in it. Izuku sat Eri on one of the beds and started to get the room in order. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Eri charging into battle on Bellion's shoulders. As he finished setting up the room for the both of them, he turned around to see Eri drawing. He noticed that the class started in 30 minutes, so he picked up Eri and her drawings and made his way to Port's class. When he arrived, the class was only half full. He noticed Jane and her team were there and sitting down already. He didn't see Team RWBY anywhere, so he thought they were still setting up their room. He walked towards the front where Mr. Port was sitting, waiting for the class to start. Izuku walked up to him and got his attention. Izuku. Hello, Mr. Port. Where would you like me to sit? Port. Ah, Mr. Sung, it is a pleasure to have you here. I must apologize for this morning. I didn't mean to come off as rude as I had meant to this morning. Izuku. It's fine, sir. No offense was taken. I understand you take your job very seriously. So there is no need to apologize, he said, smiling at the older man who returned it in kind, although it could barely be seen because of the mustache. Port. As to where you will sit, there is an extra chair behind me. You are more than welcome to it. Also, will the young lady in your arms be joining us? He said, gesturing towards Eri. Izuku. Yes, Ms. Ozpin approved of it, as I don't have anyone able to watch her for extended periods. Port. Ah, I see, but what about your parents? Couldn't they watch her or perhaps the girl's mother? Izuku gave the older man a bittersweet smile as he replied to him. Izuku. My father is no longer with us, and my mom died long ago before I could meet her. As for Eri's mother, she has never had one as I was always too busy to date. Port, seeing how his question affected the young man, stood and patted his shoulder. Port. Sorry for asking if you ever need help. I am more than happy to help, he said, giving the young man and little girl a soft smile. Izuku looked up and smiled back at the older man. After this exchange, they sat down and waited for the class to start. Eri was sitting on Pyrrha's lap, drawing pictures with Nora while the group talked to Izuku. Soon the class was ready to start. Izuku looked around and noticed Team RWBY was not there. Izuku walks back to Port and gets his attention. Izuku. It seems like all students are here except for Team RWBY. Port. Would you mind going and ensuring they are not lost? Izuku. No problem, sir. He turned around and made his way toward the back of the class. As he walked by, he asked Pyrrha to watch Eri while he ran an errand for Mr. Port. She readily agreed, hugging Eri tight to her chest, which she loved seeing. She always loved to be hugged. Izuku smiled at his daughter's happiness and walked towards the door. Izuku's POV. After leaving my daughter with Pyrrha, I went toward the door to look for Ruby and her team. I had just put my hand on the door when it suddenly burst, sending me flying back and crashing to the ground. I felt 4 things fall on me, and suddenly I was engulfed in darkness. Next, I felt something land on my lap and my left hand. While on the right, I felt something soft and fuzzy which confused me greatly. I tried to lift my head, but it pushed further into the soft darkness. I moved my hands, one was pinned down, and when I moved it, he heard someone moan lightly. While his other hand moved, the fuzzy thing he felt twitched against his hand, confusing me even more. If you wanted to rest there, all you had to do was ask. I recognized that voice, and suddenly, I could see again and came face to chest with a blushing Yang. Realizing this, my face slowly started heating up. To distract myself from the sight, I looked to my right and left and saw my hand under Weiss's butt and the other near Blake's head. The former was blushing just as deeply as Yang and quickly got up while the latter was staring at me angrily. I heard someone talking from behind Yang and looked around her to see Ruby sitting squarely on my lap. And I could only think of one thing in this situation. Izuku. Mind, for the love of Ashburn, please do not arise, my son. I heard Ruby talking to me, so I quickly paid attention to her to get my mind off it. Ruby. Oh my own, are you okay, Izuku? Before I could answer, I heard someone clear their throat behind me, and I looked back to see the whole class staring at us in this compromising position. Port. As funny as this is, would you kindly get up so we can start class, seeing that we are already running late? All of us blushed deeply and got up quickly. End of POV. The women quickly sat down in front of Jane and her team, who were silently laughing while being slightly jealous. Izuku walked back up front, picking up Eri on his way, much to the sadness of Pyrrha. After they had all sat down, Port started his class. A few minutes later, Izuku decided to work on his notes while mostly listening to Port's stories. Eri had decided to take a nap and laid her head on Izuku's lap. All the women sitting in the class thought it was adorable. Izuku noticed an angry Weiss looking at a sleeping Ruby, who was drooling and not paying attention to the teacher. Izuku thought it was cute, however, and continued to look around. Most of the class was in various states of attention to Port's story and his talking about the quality of a leader. Pyrrha actively took notes while Nora was playing around and looked to be drawing next to her. At the same time, Lily had her eyes closed and was listening. Near the end of the class, Port clapped his hand, getting everyone's attention and waking Ruby and Eri up. Now, after hearing about what makes a leader, who among you believes they have what it takes? Port said, looking around the room. Weiss. With anger towards Ruby, I do, sir. Port. Excellent, Ms. Schnee. Please step forward and demonstrate for the class. She stands up and walks toward the front of the class. Are you ready, Ms. Schnee? She pulls out her weapon and looks toward her teacher and Izuku, who smiles at her to show his support, causing her to blush thinking about what happened earlier. Weiss. Yes, sir. Port shot the lock off the covered cage, and out came a Borbatusk. This was Izuku's first time seeing one, although he had seen one in books before. Yang. Do it, Weiss, she says, pumping her fists. Blake. You can do it, she says, waving a flag around with their team name on it. Ruby. Yeah, represent Team RWBY, standing up slightly and putting up her arms. Weiss. Will you be quiet, Ruby, and let me focus, she says, shooting a look at the red-haired woman. Causing Ruby to look down and quietly apologize. Why did she only say something to Ruby? Izuku thought, looking at the anger on her face. He did not like it because it reminded him of Endeavor. He decided to do something about it after class before it got worse. But before that, the battle between the two had begun. The first to make a move was the Borbatusk, who curled into a ball and rolled towards Weiss at incredible speed. She jumped to the side to avoid it but overcommitted to the jump and hit the desk where Izuku and Eri sat. Port. Nice dodge, Ms. Schnee, but what will you do now? Weiss stands back up and starts moving in a slow circle to try and find a way to its weak spot. The Borbatusk slowly turned with her, keeping her in its sight. When she stopped moving, the Borbatusk took that opportunity to attack again what Weiss tried to block with her weapon. But she underestimated how strong the smaller creature was and got pushed back, dropping her weapon in the process. What will you do now, Ms. Schnee, now that you have lost your weapon? Port watched the fight closely to see if he needed to step in to save her life. Weiss. Aim for its stomach. It has no armor there. Ruby pointed to indicate where to hit. Don't tell me what to do, Ruby. Weiss yelled, shooting an angry look at Ruby. Weiss baited the Borbatusk into rolling again so she could jump and grab her weapon, turning quickly and using a glyph to launch the Borbatusk on its back, giving her a chance to jump up and use another glyph to send her down, stabbing its stomach, killing it. Port. Very well done, Ms. Schnee. You will make a wonderful huntress one day. Just then, the bell rang, signaling the end of the. As they were about to leave the class, a voice was heard over the intercom. That voice belonged to Olivia. Olivia. Will Mr. Sung please report to my office? There are papers that need to be signed. Izuku stood up and walked over to Ruby, with Eri walking right beside him, holding his hand. Izuku. Ruby, would you mind taking Eri with you to Ms. Goodwich's class? Ruby immediately nodded her head and took Eri's hand. Izuku then looked over at Weiss while she was packing her bag quickly, not looking at the group. And Ms. Schnee, would you please join me? I need to talk to you about something. Weiss looked up, hearing her name, and saw Izuku standing in front of her. Weiss. Can I ask why? Izuku. It's about something I noticed when you were fighting. I wish to know more before I say anything. Weiss. But what about the next class? Izuku. There is no need to worry. Ms. Rose, will you please tell Ms. Goodwitch that Ms. Schnee is with me, which means she might be late. Ruby was shocked to hear Izuku call you by her last name, something he had never done since she had known him. She looked up at him and saw him with a serious face, so she nodded and made her way to her next class with her group and Eri. Once they were all gone, Izuku started walking with Weiss beside him. They walked in silence until Weiss had enough and asked what was on her mind. Weiss. Why did you want to talk to me, Izuku? Izuku looked over at her and then back in front of him, not answering her. This annoyed Weiss, but she decided to wait before asking again not long after Izuku spoke. Izuku. I noticed that before and even during your fight, you keep looking at Ms. Rose with anger. Could you please explain to me why? This shocked Weiss knowing that Izuku was watching her. Would you like to explain to me what that is all about? Weiss. What are you walking about? Izuku. From what I could see, you seem to be jealous of Ruby for some reason, and I want to know why. Weiss. I am not jealous of some brat who doesn't even know the first thing about being a leader. Ms. Ozpin made a mistake, making her the leader. Without breaking stride, Izuku kept walking, not looking at her. Izuku. And what makes you think you would be any better? Weiss stopped dead in her tracks and stared at Izuku, also stopped and turned around to look at her. No one is ever prepared to be a leader. I can see why Ms. Ozpin would choose Ms. Rose over everyone in your group. I would choose Ms. Rose because if she fails, she will learn from it and not let it break her. Weiss. You only say that because she is a friend and you don't know me. A leader shouldn't fail, so answer me why she is better than me. Izuku. You're right, I don't know you, but people like you. Also, if you say a leader shouldn't fail, all that does is validate my point. You always learn more from your failures than you will ever learn from your victories, he said, turning around and continuing to walk toward Olivia's office, causing Weiss to speed up to catch up to him. As for her being my friend. Yes, she is, but if you noticed, I have not called her by name during this exchange. Right now, I am a teacher, not a friend. Weiss. That may be true, but it still doesn't answer my question of why she is a better leader than me. Also, what do you mean you know people like me? Izuku. Don't get me wrong, Ms. Schnee, you would make a wonderful leader. Weiss. See, even you agree, Izuku. But I fear that the first time you experience failure, it will break you. Weiss. What, Izuku? You are so sure of your own greatness that when something or someone happens to challenge it, you won't be able to adapt, and it will break you. As for the people I know that are like you that will require a story from my past, are you willing to listen? I believe it will help you. Weiss was quiet for a moment as they continued walking. Soon they arrived at Olivia's office, and Izuku asked Weiss to stand outside, wait for him, think about what he said, and stepped inside the office. As he walked in, he saw Olivia sitting behind her desk with a stack of papers going through them. Izuku. Hello, Olivia. You said there were papers for me to sign. I really hope it's not all the ones right next to you. Chuckling, no, Izuku, these are student forms. These are the papers I need you to sign showing that you are part of my staff. Olivia said, pulling out a bundle of papers significantly smaller than the other stack. Izuku walked up and grabbed the bundle, and looked through it. Not finding anything out of the ordinary, he signed the papers and handed them back. Olivia. Thank you, Izuku. Now I must ask, why is Ms. Schnee standing outside my office? Izuku. Well, I am trying to nip something in the bud before it causes a problem that won't be easily fixed. Olivia. Ah, I see. How is it going so far? No clue. Hopefully, it does work. Izuku said, walking back towards the door. Olivia. Well then, I wish you luck on your endeavor, Izuku. Funny you say that, Izuku said, turning around and smiling at Olivia before stepping out to Olivia's confusion. Weiss's POV. After Izuku walked into Ms. Ozpin's office, I stood outside thinking about what he said. He agreed that I would make a good leader, yet he also said that Ruby would make a better one. This confused me greatly because she never takes anything seriously, from what I have noticed. She slept the whole time in class, not even taking notes on the professor's lecture. What confused me the most was that Izuku knew people like me. What did that mean exactly? I stood by the door thinking this over until I heard it open, and Izuku walked out. I had made up my mind and would listen to the story. Maybe this would give me an idea of what he saw in RWBY. End of POV. Izuku walked out the doors to see Weiss looking at him. Before she could say anything, he walked past her making his way toward Glinda's class. Weiss quickly ran, catching up to him. Weiss, I would like to hear the story you were talking about. Izuku looked at her and then forward again. Unlike the last time, he didn't walk in silence and immediately started talking. Izuku. Back in my world, there was a man named Enji Todoroki. He was a hero named Endeavor. He always wanted to be the #1 hero more than anything, so much he would sacrifice anything to get there. The only problem was someone was standing in his way. Weiss. Who? Izuku. Toshinori Yagi, aka All Might, Weiss gasped, remembering the story Izuku had told them the day before. Yes, my ex-father was standing in his way of being #1. Back then, he was a different person, or so I hope. But I digress. Endeavor believed he deserved the #1 spot more than anyone. But he knew that no matter what happened, he would never be the #1, so he devised a plan. Weiss. What did he do? Izuku. You see, back in my world, there are things called quirk marriages. Two people have a kid together, so their child will have a stronger quirk than both parents. So Endeavor, using his status as the #2 hero, found someone with a powerful ice quirk and forced them into a quirk marriage. Weiss's eyes widened in horror, not liking where this was going. He forced this woman to have his kids, 5 to be exact, 3 girls and 2 boys. The only ones he cared about were the youngest twins, who had the perfect balance between his and the woman's quirk. So he neglects the rest and trains the twins quite brutally. Weiss. This is illegal. He should have been arrested, she said, anger flaring in her eyes, thinking about how this happened with her mother, who was forced to marry her father because of his family. But I must ask, what does this have to do with me? Izuku. I agree, and I will get to that. Where was I? Izuku stopped to remember where he was. Ah yes, well, because of the neglect and abuse, his wife had a mental breakdown, and his oldest daughter committed suicide by accident, trying to impress him. The more he talked about this, the more she drew parallels between this and her family. Her older sister had left because of her father's strict nature, and her mother had disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Izuku. The reason I am telling you all this is simple. You say that you should be the leader of your group, and just like Endeavor, you have all the necessary skills to do so. But do you want to know the main reason why Endeavor could never be #1? Weiss did not like being compared to this man, but her curiosity got the better of her. Weiss. Why? Izuku. Because Endeavor, unlike All Might, could not inspire hope in others. Ms. Rose is the same way Ms. Schnee. She inspires hope in those around her and pushes them to be a better version of themselves. I might hate All Might, but before he let his ego go to his head, he was a good hero. So I have a final question for you, Ms. Schnee. What type of person do you want to be? Someone who inspires hope in others and can adapt to any and all situations? Or a person who stomps on others to get what they want no matter who it hurts and only goes by what she sees as right? Weiss. Can I ask a question? Izuku. Sure. Weiss. What happened to Endeavor? Izuku. Simple, I killed him. Weiss was quiet for the rest of the time they were walking. Even though they had taken their time walking, classes still had not started but were about to begin. They were near the class when Izuku suddenly stopped dead. Weiss, not paying attention, bumped into his back and looked up at the taller man. What she saw when she looked up froze her blood and made her take an involuntary step back in fear. Izuku's eyes were glowing bright green with bits of purple in them. But what terrified Weiss the most was the look of pure rage on Izuku's face. Without warning, he took off running toward the classroom. Weiss tried to keep up but quickly fell behind. Let us take a look at what pissed Izuku off. RWBY's POV. After leaving Izuku and Weiss in Mr. Port's class, I was concerned. I had never seen Izuku looking so serious outside of a fight. I wonder what caused him to act like that. I sat in Ms. Goodwich's class, waiting for it to start with Eri on my lap, drawing a picture with Young giggling and enjoying themselves. Blake was sitting on the other side of Young reading a book I had seen Izuku reading a few times. Whenever I asked him to read it, he said it was a book I probably wouldn't like it and put it into that inventory he had. Jane and her team were sitting in front of us, talking amongst themselves. However, when she noticed, Nora joined in on the drawing with Young and Eri. All was going well until I heard someone talk behind me. Author note: I'm not too fond of this next part, which does not describe my thoughts on the characters. Look at this, a group of sluts and the little freak mascot. I turned around and saw Carden and his team standing beside where we were sitting. Young. What did you say, you little shit? Young said, standing up and glaring at Carden. Carden. I guess you can add deaf as well as ugly to the list, boys. He let out a laugh and leaned down to look at Eri. And look at this little freak here. What type of faunus are you? You only have one horn. Such a failure that you couldn't even grow a pair of horns right. Maybe I should rip this one off so you at least look normal, freak. He said, reaching out and flicking Eri hard. Eri started to tear up and hold her head while Yang's eyes turned red, and Jane and her team looked back at Carden with fury in their eyes. Eri, you're nothing but a meanie and a bully. My papa says you will never be anything. Carden. Oh, is that so, little freak? Don't think this little red and yellow slut can save you then, or you're worthless, papa. He smirked evilly and raised his fist to strike Eri. As he threw the punch, I brought Eri behind me to block it from hitting her. The punch struck my face, and I fell still, holding Eri tight, not letting her get hurt. Carden was laughing, but the rest of the class was silent. I held my cheek where he struck me and felt tears coming to my eyes from the pain. End of POV. Everyone in the classroom felt a chill run down their spine. Carden was still laughing, but soon that died off as the feeling of death came closer quickly. As the feeling grew, the shadows around the room seemed to grow darker and stretched out, seeming to move toward Carden and his team and seemed to be watching them, wanting to drag them into their depths never to be seen again. Suddenly the doors at the back of the room burst open, and a very angry-looking Izuku walked in. Izuku's POV. When I kicked in the door, I saw a man in armor standing over Ruby, holding her cheek with tears in her eyes, Eri hugging her, and a furious Yang about to jump at the man. I walked down the stairs and kneeled in front of her, ignoring the armored man and his group completely. Izuku. Ruby, move your hand. Let me see, I say, gently grabbing her hand and moving it away from her face. A red welt on her face looked to be swelling up slowly. My anger slowly started to increase even more than it was before. Ruby must have seen it on my face because she tried to calm me. Ruby. Izu, it's okay, it'll heal, she smiled, calming me down a bit, or at least it did until I heard someone talking behind me. Carden. Hey, you stupid little bitch, how dare you ignore me over that stupid little slut. I felt him throw a punch that would have hit me in the back of the head. But before he could, I quickly spun around, dodging the fist, and picked him up by the throat with one hand, shocking everyone in the class with my strength. I then looked him dead in the eye and spoke very calmly but with a cold tone that could have frozen the air around us. Izuku. I am trying my best to keep calm right now, so I suggest not doing something that would cause unnecessary harm. End of POV. Izuku's voice was calm and cold, but everyone in the class could see clearly the rage in his eyes that he was barely containing. The class stood silent for a couple of seconds, not wanting to do anything in the tense atmosphere. Things seemed to be winding down until one of Carlin's lackeys decided to do something stupid. Ra 1. Put him down. You stupid freak lover, he said, charging in and throwing a punch. Before anyone could do anything, Izuku threw Carden to the ground and dropped down, shooting out his foot to connect with the random's shin. The random in question dropped to the ground clutching his shin, which was clearly broken. Izuku looked back at Carden and knelt, grabbing him by his face and staring into his eyes. Izuku. Let me make this perfectly and, if need be, painfully clear. He said, voice cold as ice and eyes glowing brightly. If I ever see you bully anyone again, it doesn't matter who, you will join your friend over there, but instead of one knee, it will be both of them. I will not hesitate to kill you if you continue down this path after the said lesson. Do I make clear? Not being able to talk because of Izuku's grip on his face, all Carden could do was nod his head. Izuku. Good, now go. Get your friend patched up. You will be excused from class today, he said, letting go of Carden's head and turning back to Ruby, completely forgetting Carden, who quickly got up and grabbed his flunky, taking him to the nurse's office but not before shooting Izuku a hate-filled look in Izuku's direction. Glinda. Could someone please explain what happened and why Mr. Winchester dragged one of his teammates toward the nurse's office? Yang. I will explain everything. She walked up to Glinda and started to explain what had happened while she was out of the class. While that was going on, Izuku walked back to Ruby and kneeled. Izuku. How are you doing, Red? Eri, Ruby. I am okay, Izuku. Oh, it's Izuku now. What happened to Izu? Izuku said, smirking. Ruby was embarrassed and hugged Izuku, burying her face in his chest. This caused him and the others around to laugh slightly. Izuku looked over at Eri. Izuku. And how are you, Snowflake? Eri. I am okay. Papa Big Sis Ruby protected me from the bad man. Izuku smiled and brought her into a hug while also hugging Ruby, who still had her face buried in his chest. Izuku. Thank you, Ruby, for protecting my daughter when I wasn't here. I will forever be grateful. If there is ever anything I can do, just let me know, and I will do it. Ruby, still embarrassed, only nodded and said, Ruby. I will hold you to it even though I would have done it no matter what. At this point, Yang had finished explaining what had happened, and both walked toward Izuku and Ruby. Glinda. Thanks to Ms. Xiaolong. I think I understand what has happened. Mr. Winchester will be punished for what has happened here. Izuku. Good, Glinda. But sadly, you might also be punished for threatening a student. She did not look happy about that, but Izuku did not care. He had fully expected to be punished somehow for threatening to kill a student. The others, however, were not too happy about the outcome. But Izuku stood up, much to Ruby's protest, and met Glinda's eyes. Lily. Ms. Goodwitch, I don't think that is right. He was protecting his daughter and friend from someone threatening them with physical harm. Nora. Yeah, although it was awesome seeing Izuku break his shin. Should have aimed for his kneecap instead, Izu. Everyone just turned to Nora, who was smiling widely and had a crazed look in her eye. Izuku. Yay, I am not touching that one, but it is okay, guys. I fully expected this outcome, so I accept any punishment Ms. Ozpin deems necessary. Yang. But, Izuku. It's okay, Yang, he said, petting her head and smiling. I would do it again for anyone regardless of the consequences. That's just the type of person I am. Yang hugged Izuku tightly, not wanting to let him go. Yang. Yeah, it is, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Izuku only smiled and hugged her back. Ahem, as much as I hate to ruin this moment, we need to start class. Then we will go and talk to Ms. Ozpin, Glinda stated, looking jealously towards Yang, who was hugging Izuku, wanting to be in her place. Izuku nodded and let go of Yang, who pouted. Izuku. Okay, everyone, take your seats and let's start class, Ms. Rose. You are excused to get some ice for your cheek to help with the swelling. I know your aura absorbed most of the punch, but it was still a metal fist, so take care it doesn't get worse. Everyone followed his instructions, with Ruby leaving to grab some ice for her cheek and returning quickly, not wanting to miss too much of combat class. The first class did not have any combat on the first day. Glinda taught them the basics of aura and how everyone has different amounts and abilities. In the end, Izuku and Glinda started walking toward Olivia's office to learn about Izuku's punishment. Izuku's POV. I was walking down the street with Eri beside me holding my hand. While I prefer my suits, I decided to wear some clothes that my dad had left me, which were surprisingly comfortable. Eri had decided to wear one of her favorite black dresses with a white collar. It was peaceful, given that I was on leave from Beacon for a week because of the incident in Glinda's class. However, seeing Olivia's face was priceless when Glinda and I walked into her office after class and explained what had happened. Flashback. It was just after class had ended, and Glinda was escorting me to Olivia's office so my punishment could be handed out. We quickly stopped by my room so Eri could nap while I talked to Olivia. She wanted to come to help defend me, but I told her it would be okay. I was not concerned because I would have made the same decision again, given the opportunity. So I would agree to any punishment Olivia deemed appropriate. As we arrived in front of Olivia's door, Glinda turned to me. Glinda, are you prepared, Izuku? Izuku, yes, I will accept whatever she deems appropriate. Glinda, very well, and between you and me, I think you should have done worse. Izuku looked at Glinda in surprise, only to see a small smile on her face as she opened the door. Izuku lowered his head slightly and smiled, knowing she had his back. As the door opened, I saw Olivia still sitting behind her desk. The stack of paper was almost gone, and she was on the last few pages. She looked up at us, and a confused look crossed her face. Olivia, Glinda, Izuku, what are you two doing here? Glinda, well, Olivia, we had an issue earlier involving Izuku and a student. What happened? Olivia said, concern on her face slowly growing. Glinda explained what she had been told had happened in the classroom shortly before showing up herself. After telling her what had happened, Olivia took off her glass and pinched the bridge of her nose. Olivia, Izuku, Izuku, I am not apologizing for what I did. Olivia, nor would I expect you to. While I agree that he definitely deserves what happened to him and his goons. I chuckled, hearing her call the students goons. This caused her to smile slightly. I do have to give some type of punishment for hurting a student. Izuku, that is fine. I fully accept it. Olivia, good then, for your punishment. You will be on 1 week's leave from being an assistant, and once you return, you will join Ms. Oobleck's class to learn about the history of this world along with your assistant duty. That's it? I asked surprised. Yes, that's it. What, would you like it to be worse? Olivia asked, raising an eyebrow. Izuku, no, that's fine. I said, throwing up my hands in surrender. Olivia, good then, she said, smiling sweetly at me. End of flashback. So because of that, I am walking around town with Eri enjoying my time off. The others wanted to join but could not because they still had to attend classes. Cardin, however, was punished worse. Both he and his team were on house arrest for a month and were extremely unhappy about the punishment I had received, stating that it was unfair. Olivia, however, pointed out that I had acted in self-defense for another student and my daughter. After that, he stormed away, looking like he was planning something, but I didn't care. I had one of my shadows watching him to make sure he didn't do anything. So, Snowball, what would you like to do while I am off for the week? I asked, looking at Eri, who was happily walking beside me. Eri, how about getting something for Big Sis Ruby and the others? They seemed sad that they couldn't join us. So let's get something to make them happy. I smiled at Eri, wanting to make others happy, and ruffled her hair, causing her to giggle. Come on Papa, let's get going to find something perfect for them. Eri said, pulling me forward. I laughed and allowed her to pull me. End of POV. As Eri pulled forward, Izuku, not paying attention, accidentally ran into someone. He felt someone bump into his chest and looked down to see that the person had fallen on her butt. She had mixed hair. One side was pink, and the other was brown. She had dual-color eyes that matched her hair and wore a rather nice suit and high heels. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Are you okay? Izuku asked, reaching out a hand which the girl gratefully took, and he pulled her up. When she stood, she was barely at his chest. She pulled out a small notepad and started to write on it. It's fine, no harm done. She wrote out and smiled up at Izuku. Izuku, still, is there something I can do to make it up? We were going to get something to eat. Would you like to join? Yay, Papa says if you do something wrong, always try to make it up if you can. And why are you using that instead of talking? Eri said, smiling brightly at the woman. She looked down at smiling Eri, picked her up, hugged her, and nodded at Izuku, laughing, seeing the situation in front of him. Izuku, why does that not surprise me that Eri was the deciding factor? Could I get your name, Ms.? She grabbed the notepad again, still hugging Eri, and flipped a few pages. Once she found the one she was looking for, she showed it to Izuku. Neo, she nodded, smiling up at Izuku. Well then, shall we go and see what we find? And Eri, the reason for that is she is probably mute. Oh, is that true? Eri asked, looking back at Neo, who smiled sadly and nodded. Eri hugged Neo to cheer her up, which seemed to work. Onward, Eri cheered, raising her fist forward, with Neo following closely behind her. Neo moved forward swiftly, with Izuku not far behind laughing. The three would spend the day together, walking around and seeing what the city of Vale had to offer. Neo carried Eri for most of the time until she wanted to walk around. Neo looked quite sad, but Eri grabbed her hand, pulling her forward and causing her to smile at the small white-haired girl. As the day drew to a close, Izuku was holding a very tired Eri, who was falling asleep in his arms. Izuku was returning toward Beacon, but Neo stopped as they approached. She turned and smiled back at Izuku. Izuku, I assume you have to go. Neo nodded, looking down sad. Izuku walked up and petted her head, causing her to look up. I have the rest of the week off because of certain circumstances, and we will probably be out exploring the town. If you would ever like to join, you are welcome to join us. I can't say I will always be alone. That doesn't change anything, he said, smiling at Neo, who smiled back and hugged him tightly. After they separated, she took off running in the opposite direction of Beacon, only turning back long enough to wave goodbye to the two, who waved back smiling. They both made their way inside and to their room. They arrived and opened the door. When he did, he was met with both teams, RWBY and JNPR, relaxing in his room, which surprised him. Izuku, what are you all doing in here? Pyrrha, we were bored and wanted to hang out together after classes, and your room was between our rooms, so we decided to come and wait for you to arrive back. Izuku, I see, well, that works out. I picked up something to cheer you all up. Izuku felt something poking his cheek and looked over to see Eri wide awake and pouting at him. It was Eri's idea. She wanted to do something to cheer you up because you all looked sad that you could not join this morning. Ah, that's so nice of you, Small Bean. Thank you, Nora said, getting up, taking Eri from Izuku's arms, hugging her tight, and kissing her cheek, causing her to giggle. What did you get? Izuku. Well, Eri picked out some crepes for everyone, and for Ruby, she picked out some freshly baked cookies. The words barely left Izuku's mouth before he was tackled by a speeding red bullet, sending him to the ground with her on top of him. Ruby. Where are they? Izuku laughed at Ruby's childishness and reached into the air, pulling out a box filled with cooking that was still hot and fresh. She quickly took the box from his hands, kissed his cheek without thinking, and then ate them. Everyone was shocked at what Ruby had done. Most shocked was Yang, who had thought she was the bold one. Ruby slowly realized what she just did, blushed heavily, and stuttered. Ruby. IIIIAAMSS sorry IIIEZU IIIW was J just E exited AA and DD didn't THTH think B before IIA acted. Izuku, wanting to calm her, stood up, walked over, and started to pet her head, causing her to quiet and calm down. It's okay, Ruby. I just felt shocked. I am not mad at you. I liked it, so don't worry, Izuku said, giving her a soft smile and calming her down even more. The others in the room were jealous and had the same thought in mind. Everyone thought I will do the same when he gives me the crepe. After Ruby had calmed down enough, Izuku started pulling the crepes out of his inventory and handing them to each girl. As he did, each one thanked him with a kiss on the cheek and left quickly afterward, each saying a different nickname for him. Girls. Good night, Izu, Zuku, Greenie, Ku, Zuzu. Nora accidentally took Eri with her before Izuku could stop her because he was still shocked at the girl's actions. Izuku, not knowing what else to do, washed up and fell into bed feeling more tired than he had in a while. Since Eri had not returned, Izuku figured she would be staying the night with Team JNPR, which was fine since they had not given him a reason not to trust them. Before long, he fell into a dreamless sleep and didn't wake up until morning. Time skip brought to you by Sleepy Eri. As Izuku awoke and was hugging something, he opened his eyes to see him hugging Pyrrha with Eri in between them, both asleep still, although Pyrrha had a slight blush on her face. He tried to move away from her slowly but caused her to wake up slowly. Pyrrha's POV. As I awoke, I felt someone hugging me. I would have been lying if I had said it was uncomfortable. I snuggled deeper into the warmth, and I almost fell back asleep. But then I remembered last night, Eri had woken up late into the night and had wanted to go back to Izuku. Being the only one awake then, I decided to take her back. Izuku had left his door open, and I walked in and sat Eri down next to Izuku, who instantly curled up next to him. It was so adorable that I would have taken a picture if I had my scroll. After putting Eri down, I turned to walk away but felt something grab my arm. Before I could turn, I was pulled backward and was lying on the bed with Izuku, holding me with Eri in between us. I tried to pull away and leave, but Izuku pulled me deeper into his embrace. Against my will, I fell asleep in his warm embrace and would have been lying if I said I didn't like it. All this came rushing back to me, and I quickly opened my eyes and saw Izuku looking at me. My face instantly felt hot, and it probably matched my hair. I quickly pulled back, although reluctantly, and sat up. I saw Izuku's face go a deep red looking at me, and he quickly looked away. I was confused and looked down and saw that the top few buttons on my nightshirt had come undone during the night and was exposing my breasts to him. If possible, my face felt even hotter. I quickly got up and ran out of the room, covering my chest. I heard Izuku calling after me but was too embarrassed to stop. I returned to my room and was thankful that the rest of my team was still asleep. I quickly adjusted and went to my bed, covering my burning face and waiting for the rest of my team to wake up while I replayed what had happened in my mind. End of POV. Over the next week, when Izuku would go out exploring the town with Eri, he would occasionally run into Neo but only when the two were alone. If anyone joined when they had off, she would avoid them. Neo learned more about the two and bits of their past during that time. But Neo wasn't the only one avoiding Izuku. When even he and Pyrrha would run into each other, Izuku would try and talk about what had happened. She would quickly turn and walk in the opposite direction, not in anger towards Izuku but instead out of embarrassment because of what happened. The last day before Izuku returned to work was just Izuku and Neo. Eri had decided to stay with Olivia, who was more than happy to spend time with her. While Neo was more than happy to spend time with Izuku was lost in thought about what to do with Pyrrha. But even still, he paid attention to Neo, not wanting to upset her. Well, this will be the last day I will be on break, so what will you do from now on? Izuku asked, looking at the smaller woman who looked down sad. Izuku put her head to cheer her up when she was, and she started to write on her notepad. I will be working with my partner on something. We recently got a new boss, she wrote and showed it to Izuku. She turned it around and continued to write. She is nice but can be scary when she is mad. Well, I hope everything turns out alright, Izuku said. If anything happens with your new boss, let me know, and I will help in any way I can. Also, I wish I could have met your partner. They sound like a lovely person. You will have to introduce me to them sometime. Neo looked at Izuku thankfully and hugged him tightly, smiling. Soon their time came to an end, and they were walking back toward Beacon. Neo looked down sad, so Izuku decided to give the gift he had prepared for her. I have something that I want to give you as a thank you for this enjoyable week you have given me and for being a friend to Eri, Izuku said, reaching into the air and pulling out a gift-wrapped box that he handled gently. I want you to wait to open it when you get home. Neo looked at the gift in shock and started to tear up slightly. She gently took the package from Izuku's hands. It was a medium-sized package that had a little weight to it. Neo put the box down and brought Izuku into a tight hug which he returned happily. After the touching moment between the two, Neo picked up the gift gently and ran off, turning to wave back at Izuku and give him a blinding smile. Izuku waved back and saw Pyrrha watching. Izuku quickly ran up to her before she could turn. Can we talk? Izuku asked her. She didn't turn back, her face slowly heating up, remembering what had happened. Pyrrha, we don't have anything to talk about. Obviously, we do. Otherwise, why would you be avoiding me for the past week? I understand if you are mad, but please talk to me. Izuku said, turning Pyrrha around to be met with a blushing Pyrrha whose face matched her hair. Look, Izu, I am not mad about what happened. It was just embarrassing. I have never had any guy friends or any friends really, so when that happened, I was just really embarrassed and didn't know how to deal with it. Pyrrha said, looking away. Growing up being a prodigy is a lonely experience. Everyone expects greatness from you, and you never know who is truly there for you or what you can bring them. It's lonely, she said, looking down and slightly tearing up. Izuku brought her into a tight hug, and she cried into his chest, letting out all the pain she had felt for years and had never been able to express. He knew how that felt and how it could eat at you, leading you down a dark path that only someone else could pull you out from. They stood there for a while, not talking. Izuku comforted the crying woman the best he could by just being there for her, petting the back of her head. Not long after, Pyrrha let go of Izuku and wiped her face. Sorry for that, I didn't mean to unload all that on you, Pyrrha said, still wiping her face. It's fine, Pyrrha, it's what friends are for, isn't right, you guys, Izuku said, looking over at the corner of the building where both Team RWBY and JNPR, along with Eri, fell from around the corner, much to Pyrrha's surprise. Pyrrha, how long have you been there? From the beginning, Ruby said, looking down in shame. Lily, we are sorry for eavesdropping. We were worried when you disappeared. Pyrrha, I understand being worried, but that doesn't give you a reason to eavesdrop. The group looked down in shame. Clam down, Pyrrha. Friends worry about each other. And while I agree with you that it doesn't give them a reason to eavesdrop on a private conversation, Izuku said, walking over to stand behind the gathered group. I wouldn't have this group any other way, he said, wrapping his arms around the group and resting his head on Ruby's, giving Pyrrha a warm smile. Plus, you're not the only prodigy here anymore, Izuku said, tapping his head down on Ruby's. She looked up at him, annoyed. Little Red right here is also one, if we are being honest. I mean, she is a 16-year-old at a college. If that doesn't scream prodigy, I don't know what does, so you're not alone anymore. Pyrrha's eyes widened and began to tear up. Eri walked up to her and raised her arms, looking up at her. Pyrrha picked up Eri, who hugged her tight. It's okay to be sad. Papa told me that when you are sad, all you have to do is have people you love around, and all the bad things go away. If that doesn't work, come to me, and I will hug all the bad things away. Eri said, hugging Pyrrha tighter. The group laughed, and Pyrrha smiled and hugged the small girl back. Now, having said all that, I think it is time for dinner and then bed because we all have classes in the morning, Izuku said, moving back from the group. Pyrrha, if it's fine with you, can Eri sleep with me tonight? Izuku, that is up to her. Eri, do you want to sleep with big sis Pyrrha tonight? Eri nodded fast, hugging Pyrrha tighter. The others were jealous but let it go seeing that Pyrrha needed this. Ruby, I call sleeping with the snowball tomorrow. The group looked at Ruby like she had betrayed them and started arguing with each other about who gets sleep with Eri. Leave that up to Eri. She gets to decide, Izuku said, laughing and walking away to get dinner and a bath. Eri, however, seemed to be enjoying the attention she was getting from the groups. While this is happening, let's see what happened after Neo left Izuku. Neo's POV. Anytime she is talking, she writes it down. After I left Izuku at Beacon, I returned to the base and was so happy. Izuku gave me a gift. This was the first one I had received in years that didn't come from Roma. I was confused when Izuku told me to wait until I got home to open it, and I almost ignored him in my excitement. But I humored his request and waited until I got back, but it was hard not to open it. As I arrived at the base, Roma gave me a weird look while she had plans on the table. I moved some to clear a spot and gently sat the gift on the table. Roma was looking at the present with a confused look on her face. She looked up at me with a raised eyebrow that only raised higher when she saw my smiling face. Okay, now I am curious about what in that box could possibly make you that happy, Roma said, coming over and looking at the box over my shoulder. She went to grab it, but I moved it away and shot a look at her. Neo. Mine. Okay, I was just curious about what could make you so happy, Roma said, taking a step back and holding up her hands. Sorry, this is just a gift from Izuku, Neo wrote and smiled at the present. Roma. As Izuku, the boy you have been spending time with the last week. Neo nodded and started to unwrap the gift. Isn't that also the same boy the Cinder was tasked to watch? Neo stopped opening the present and looked at Roma with worry. I'll take that as a yes. Well, let's see what he gave you and, if need be, report it to her. I looked down sad, my earlier excitement disappearing after this recent revelation. I didn't want to betray the trust Izuku had placed in her, but at the same time, I didn't want to get Roma in trouble because I didn't report what had happened. So, in the end, I opened up the gift with excitement and worried about what it might be. I pulled the top off, and inside was a glass bottle sitting on a pillow. I reached in and pulled out the bottle. It was a glass bottle with a blood-red liquid in it that had what looked like bits of gold floating in it. It had a silver lining surrounding the bottom of the bottle and along the sides and top. Is that it? Roma asked, looking over my shoulder, picking up the box, and turning it over. When she did, the pillow fell out, along with a note. I leaned over, picked it up, and saw writing on it. Roma. What's that? Neo shrugged, and Roma leaned over my shoulder to read it with me. Izuku. Hey Neo, I assume you were home when you opened this, as I asked you. I wanted to give you this gift as a thank you for spending time with Eri and me. Roma. Who is Eri? Neo. His daughter. She would sometimes join whenever I would hang out with him. She is adorable beyond words. Roma. He has a daughter. Neo. Adopted. Roma. Oh. Neo. Yes, now be quiet so I can finish reading. Izuku. I wanted to do something special as a thank you. The bottle in the box is something that my father left me before he passed. It was something he made that could cure any illness. What? This can cure any illness? Roma said, looking at the bottle in my hand in shock. Izuku. I modified it, so it no longer does that. However, doing so gave it the power to heal one specific thing. When you drink the whole bottle, you cannot leave a single drop in it. When you do, it will heal your muteness and enable you to talk. You will have to learn how to talk, but I believe you will be able to do so and hope you find this helpful. If not, use it how you see fit. Sincerely Izuku. I stood in shock. If I drink this, I will be able to talk. I stood there not doing anything, just staring at the bottle in my hand and then returning to reread the note from Izuku. My thoughts were going a mile a minute, and I couldn't organize them. I didn't move until I felt Roma grab my shoulder and turn me around. Neo. Roma yelled, shaking me slightly. Are you back with me now? You have stared at the bottle and letter for the last 2 minutes. I have been calling your name, and you didn't respond. Are you okay? She gave me a worried look and held onto my shoulders. I nodded, still slightly in a daze. Neo. Why would he give something like this to me? Roma. What do you mean, Neo? Neo. He said this was something his dead father left him, and then he took time to modify it so it would heal me when he could have saved it for someone else. We both know I am not the best person, so why would he waste something valuable on me when he could have saved it for one of his other friends I saw him hanging out with when they needed it? Okay, slow down, Neo. Your writing is getting hard to read with how fast you are writing. Take a deep breath and calm down. Roma said, putting her hands on my shoulders. I did as she said and started to calm down a bit. Good, now we have to report this to the boss, but first, can you think of any reason he would have done this? Neo. No, I think he is just a genuinely nice person. Roma. No one is nice for no reason. Could he be after your body? Neo. No, I don't believe so. Roma. What makes you say that? Neo. The fact that he acts the same with me as he does with his other friends, he never focuses on our bodies and seems to like to spend time with us genuinely. Roma. He could be faking it. Neo. I don't think he is. Okay, we are just going back and forth now. Let's go report this to the boss lady and see what she thinks, Roma said, rubbing the bridge of her nose lightly. I nodded my head, and Roma turned and walked away, and I followed her. End of POV. Salem was sitting on her throne, thinking about what she had discovered on her trip. When Salem arrived where she felt the Grimm were, she was shocked at what she had found. There was a group of Grimm that looked like the ones she spawned but were different, not to mention that they were in groups that should not have been working together. Their bodies, once pitch black, now have a variety of colors. Some were red as blood, others a sickly green, and still more were pale yellow. Their once bone-white mask was now as black as their bodies were supposed to be. She watched for a bit as they came across another group of Beowulfs and attacked them, seeming to infect the ones defeated, turning them into the same colors as the ones that defeated them. Not wanting this to spread more, Salem quickly dispatched the gathered Grimm, if they could still be called that, and made her way back to her castle. Salem was deep in thought about what could have caused this, her thoughts returning to a certain green-haired man who had done something similar but vastly different. Her thought kept going around in circles till they were interrupted by a floating Grimm that had what looked like a crystal ball for a head and tentacles dangling from it. This caught her attention. Who would dare interrupt her? It was soon answered when the face of Cinder was seen through the orb. Salem. There had better be a reason for you to contact me, Cinder. I thought I gave you a mission to look into the boy. That is why I am contacting you, Master. There seems to have been an interesting development and new information, Cinder said quickly, not wanting to face her master's anger. Oh, and what would that be? Salem asked, raising a black eyebrow. Cinder. Well, one of the people we enlisted for the next mission had a run-in with the boy, whose name we discovered as Izuku-sung, while walking the town. She had run into him while he was out with a little girl. Salem. Who is this little girl? Cinder. He claims that she is his daughter, although when asked if she was his, he denied it, saying that she was adopted but considered her his real daughter. She apparently has a bad past, but he did not elaborate further when asked. Salem brought her hand to her chin, thinking about this but nodded for Cinder to continue. From what we have gathered, he just appeared one day. I believe he is the person we had a run-in with during the dust heist, given the color of his hair and build is similar to what I witnessed. Salem. I remember you saying something about almost failing that mission because of interference from an unknown third party. So you believe it is him? Yes, Master, Cinder said, nodding. Salem hummed in thought. Salem. Could this run-in with this person? What was their name again? She goes by Neo, Cinder answered. Salem. Yes, Neo. Could this run-in be a setup to lead her into a trap or get information out of her? Cinder shook her head in response to the question. Cinder. No, from what he said, he was put on leave because of an incident at Beacon. This caught Salem's attention immediately. Salem. Why was he on leave, and leave of what? Cinder. He apparently was hired as an assistant to both the combat teacher and Grimm studies teacher, having impressed both. Salem thought back to when he was fighting the small army of Grimm and how he seemed to dismantle them easily while smiling the whole time. She understood why that hag Olivia would make him a combat teacher after watching that, but what caught her attention was being hired for the Grimm studies. What could he have learned that impressed them so much, and how had he learned it? Her thoughts were interrupted when Cinder continued to talk. Cinder. As for why he was on leave, from what we have been able to gather, there was an altercation between him and another group of boys where he ended up breaking one's leg and threatened to kill one. What could have driven him to go to such extremes? Salem asked, shocked hearing this. This didn't go with the image she had of Izuku from what she had witnessed when outside battle. He seemed kind, having watched his interaction with the other groups. He had jumped head first to save the blonde-haired woman who was about to be killed and saved her. Cinder. From what we were told, it was because this person tried to hit his daughter but ended up hitting the red-haired woman we saw with him in the forest. He then attempts to throw another punch but is quickly stopped by Izuku. This brings us to our current problem. And what would that be? Salem asked, sitting forward in her chair in interest. Cinder. Neo had been interacting with Izuku for the past week when he was alone with the little girl, and whenever he was with someone else, she would avoid him. Salem. Smart. Cinder. Very, but this was the last day of his leave from Beacon. As they were heading back and Neo was about to depart, Izuku stopped her saying he had something for her. From what I am told, he reached into the air and pulled out a box, saying it was a gift for Neo. She accepted the gift, returned to her base, and opened it to find a glass bottle. A glass bottle, that's it. That does not seem that important to tell me about. Salem asked, confused why she was bringing this up. Cinder. The glass bottle itself is not important, but what's inside it is. And that would be. Salem asked, starting to get annoyed. Cinder, sensing this, quickly spoke. Cinder. Inside the glass bottle was a blood-red liquid with bits of gold. A note with it said this could cure any illness, but he modified it to make Neo speak again. The only downside is that you have to drink the whole thing for it to work. Salem was speechless. She had never heard of anything like this in her long life, even when the goddesses walked the earth. Salem. Where is it? Cinder. Neo has it. She is waiting for me to call her in the other room. Salem. Get her. Cinder nodded and left the view of the orb. A minute later, she came back, followed by a dual-colored hair-and-eyed woman who followed nervously. Salem. Let me see it. Neo nodded and raised the bottle, showing it to Salem. Salem leaned forward to get a better look at what she was holding, inspecting it closely. It seemed plain, minus its blood-red color. Salem rubbed her chin thoughtfully and concluded, I want you to drink it. If it works as he says, then we might be able to get more of the unaltered version from him if he has any, or we could find the recipe to make it ourselves. Neo looked from Salem back to the bottle and was prompted by Salem again to drink. She brought the bottle to her mouth, tipped it back, and started drinking it. As she finished, all watched her, waiting for something to happen. Not long after, a light started to shine from her throat and quickly died out. That's it. Try talking now, Salem said impatiently to see if it worked. Neo. Hi. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.